www.dwayne.com using Chrome or Safari. You can also tune in using the TuneIn app, the Vibe 103 app. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, the Outlet BDA. Again, I want to thank everybody in the public domain for all your support. It's been tremendous, the positive feedback. As always, we will open the lines, and the hotline's 232-1033. And again, we are joined by Eugene Dean, BeyondThePandemic.tv. I don't know if Eugene's mic's on yet, but I'm ready to say good morning.
Yes, greetings everyone. Give thanks.
And we're also joined by Enda Matthie. In case people don't know, Enda Matthie is a dynamic and compelling inspirational speaker and leader in the field of personal transformation. She is dedicated to providing sacred space for spiritual growth and advancement to all those with whom she comes into contact. Her belief that every part of one's life experience flows forth energetically from within and expresses as their manifested reality is the guide that she lives by. This belief is the catalyst that propels her to explore her internal world, unlocking the secrets and powers it stores. This self-exploration in conjunction with encouraging others to self-explore in her life's work. Good morning, Enda.
Hotep, Zara.
Hello.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank
Hotep,
you.
Bermuda. I love food.
Oh, yes. Can you explain that to me just real quick and to the listeners? Because when we were going back and forth on messages, I was basically like, oh, Lord, this must be a little, what is it called? Autocorrect or whenever you're typing. I mean, I know when I put duck, something else comes up. Or vice versa.
So Hotep literally means unto you be peace.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. And also, Enda she's ever seeking to develop her skills and talents, and she completed her certification in, oh, my computer just messed up there. Sorry, guys, because I'm giving a little history on Enda. It's just moving all by itself. Sorry about that. She also, let me see where I was. Yeah, okay, so she completed her certification as a professional coach in August 2012 and added coaching to her repertoire of offerings, which include teaching life skill classes, guided meditation, breathing techniques, creating and facilitating workshops, playwriting, directing and producing, and performing feel-good flows at special events. If you would like to book with her or for any booking information, contact empressgardens@hotmail.com, and that's empressgardens@hotmail.com. Again, welcome, Enda. And we have Eugene.
Greetings.
And so a couple of things that we would like to touch on is cover some leadership, speak on the lack thereof, and we can also touch on people unifying to mobilize themselves and the fact that it's time to cross some lines. So Enda, I don't know if you want to go ahead and start.
Okay, I'll jump right in. Greetings, Eugene Dean. Hi, Dwayne Caines. Good to
Dwayne
see
Caines here too. It's going to be fire.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun today.
We are.
We're going to have some fun. So let me first say to Bermuda what I love to say, what's in my heart. I love you. I pray for you. I think about you. I contemplate you. I am concerned about where we are at, where we find ourselves. I stay up night after night thinking about where do we go from here, the fallout that is going to come from all of this wonderful activity that we're experiencing at this point in Bermuda's history. And I'm not going to say I come to a whole lot of conclusions, but I am thinking about you. I know that there's a lot of suffering going on out there. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of division. I feel very personally offended that, from my perception, government is pushing a lot of this division and promoting a lot of this division. And as long as we have enough people that are afraid and anxious and apprehensive, they're going to push back. They're going to push back against their family members. They're going to push back against people in organizations that were in. Once where you had peace, you have fighting and discord because someone's trying to take our choice away. I want a vaccine. I want to get vaccinated. I think it's healthy for me. I think it's going to stop the virus, whatever your reason is for getting it. And then I don't want a vaccine. I don't want to be vaccinated. I don't think it's healthy for me. For whatever reason, you don't want to have it. But we can't seem to agree to disagree. We are having a hard time with it. And so, how do we come to a place of agreement, of harmony? How do we move together through this, in spite of how difficult and uncomfortable it is? I cannot convince anyone. I'm not even interested in convincing anyone not to get vaccinated or not to experiment with this gene therapy. Me personally, I don't think it's a vaccine. Just by the research I've done, by the things I've listened to, by the conversations I've had with other people who are well more researched than I am. But I'm not going to distance myself or not hug somebody because they're vaccinated. Where is our own inner fortitude and self-love and self-strength to say, I'm still me, I'm not defined or determined by whether you're vaccinated or I'm not. I think we are falling apart. I think our own inner truths are coming out, our own lack. And the ones of us who are angry, because I have moments where I'm really angry, we need some place to direct it. And because the government is who we perceive to be pushing this on us, we direct it at them. We want to feel like we are included, whether I'm vaccinated or not vaccinated, whether I'm black, whether I'm white, whether I'm of your religious belief or a different religious belief. We want to feel included. I think that need to feel included is also causing us problems because we want to feel included to such a level that we are doing things we wouldn't necessarily do. Some people really, really need a depth of validation. They need to know that if you don't love me, then I'm nothing and nobody. If you don't give me attention, then I don't feel like anybody. That's self-work that needs to be done. That's not necessarily anybody else's problem. But we spill all of that out into the community amongst ourselves. And we really need to get healthy. And maybe all of this fighting will help us to look inward, will help us to turn on the inside, right? So that's my little bit for now. I think I've said enough for now, and someone else can jump in and take over. But I have so much to say about what we are experiencing because it's both personal and collective, and we have to start dealing with our own personal issues, how they are being poured out into the community, and we have to deal with a government who we put in place and how they are responding to us and pushing whatever their agenda is. And every government has an agenda. They ought to. That's why they're the government. But the agenda has to encompass all of us, all of our well-being. You can't say to me, well, it's only 10 of you who don't care. Suck it up. Get over it. So, because it's just 10 of us, my feelings don't count. What happens to me doesn't matter. In this case, I can't go with the majority rules. I just can't. It's too important.
Thank you, Enda, very much.
And very powerful words. And when you started the vaccine, you're actually starting at the problem. You're actually not looking at the root causes of where we got. I actually disagree very respectfully with Enda said, and I think this is a really good time in the history of the country and the history of the world. Let me tell you why. Most of the times, we are fed information. And we're fed information that we have been comfortable with for years. We turn on CNN, NBC, ABC, and those have been the founts for our truths. We open up the Royal Gazette. We then open up Bermuda Broadcasting Company, it was the Bermuda Sun, and guess what? Those are the truths that we accepted, and it shaped our opinion. There was an invention called the internet, and what happened on the internet, it changed the way people viewed information. And so what happened with the internet, and social media, people were able to communicate in real time and see that there were other like-minded people all around the world that shared opinions just like them, and they did no longer had to suffer or take the opinion of the strongest voice in the room. When you think about texture, think about something that has the strongest character in a space. For instance, they talk about a melting pot. And a melting pot is when you take everything and you melt it into one. And guess what happens? It takes on the strongest consistency of the variable in that thing that is the strongest. Then you look at a salad. A salad, everything in that salad keeps its original shape and flavor, and we all can benefit from it. Culturally, we've adapted a form of information that forces everybody into groupthink. So now, with information, people have the ability to challenge information in front of us, challenge the people who spew the information and say we are uncomfortable with it. What I like about this time is people are finding their voice. They fought for the first time in their life, they're groups of individuals that their value system does not align with the main value system of the country that they're a part of. But guess what? There are people that have been in non-traditional religions, Islam, Jehovah's Witness, I can go down the line, who have had to live this as their reality. You've had people who've been physically challenged, and when they walk into a community, they walk into a community that does not consider who they are, and so this is their reality. So to some of us, this is an activation of our activism because someone has stood on our toes. And there's a reality check about where we are right now in this time in history. People have been standing on people's toes for the last thousands of years. If we want to put this in a global perspective, let's look at what's happening in Haiti right now. Let's take this from our very myopic view and let's go to Haiti in 1804 when Toussaint Louverture was the first country in the Western Hemisphere to free itself from a dominating world power. And if you look at the trajectory of that country, ever since they made a concerted effort to stand, they have suffered at the hands of the world's forces. I'm talking about United States, Spain, France. They have been economically disadvantaged, and this historically. So what I'm saying is keep context about global issues and how those global issues affect how we look at the world. So when you look at it from the perspective of the vaccine, it becomes personal. And so you react and you respond because that inner button was pushed. And I dare say, in the small community that we live, you know what's been the trigger point for it? It has been travel. Our beautiful desire to spread our wings and fly away. And I'm saying that's not a bad thing. But when you look at the essence of what is at the table right now, it is that somebody did not consider, as Enda said, who I was as a person. The United States Constitution in its purest form says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, and I'm going to put women in there, are created equal. And they were endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. And that means rights that no man could give you, so no man can take it away. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And pursuit of happiness means whatever you deem to be happiness for you, you have the right to pursue it. Enda said something else that is a universal truth. Majority in the democratic space. Majority rules is a democratic principle. Here's what we never hear, the back end of that statement. The back end of that statement says, minorities still have rights. So whenever you hear that quote, somebody always says, majority rules. They never finish it. And the ending of that quote is, minorities still have rights. So what she is saying in the foundation of the democratic principle is, just because I am in the minority, it does not mean I abdicate my rights as you as a society to protect it. Now let me first say, I'm not speaking as a government official. My brother is the politician. He and I are very unique people and we do not share a brain. So my perspectives are uniquely shaped by my experience. And I do not sit here as a politician, and I do not sit here with all the answers. What I'm here to do is explore the foundation of rights and democracy. And so when you look at what's happening now, bring it back to the present day scenario. I like what's happening right now because it's awakening people to what their rights are, what their voice yields. They now are looking behind the veil and asking questions. People of color, for the first time, have to challenge the authority that's in place that has always, historically, they believe has represented their interests. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I can disagree with Eugene Dean and still like him.
Yeah.
I can disagree fundamentally with something Enda says and still like her. If a person disagrees with you, it does not mean they're your enemy. It means that they are unique in their thought and their perspectives. In Bermuda, we've been conditioned like Pavlov's dog. If somebody rings a bell, we react to how we feel in that moment. And so if I am an anti-vaxxer, immediately I hate everybody or hate government. No, I do not like the position that you've taken on this issue, and I'm going to hold you accountable. It does not mean we're not friends, I don't like you. It means I respect myself to stand. It is not attached emotionally to our relationship. It is attached to the principle. Again, principle. Principles don't change. It's a principle of fairness and equality. So when you attach yourself to a principle, you can always stand. You can always look somebody in the eye because it's not personal. In Bermuda, we go outside the bounds of the principle and we attach our emotions to issues, and the emotions are usually attached to race. Our emotions are usually attached to gender. Our emotions are usually attached to faith. And when you put the smorgasbord of those things into one place, that's when you get the history that a moment takes. And you then are not dealing with Eugene Dean taking this issue. Oh, he represents this, he represents... And they're going to go to attack him because of the personality. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is, let's get to the tenets of democracy. Let's get to the tenets of free speech. Let's get to the tenets. And when you segregate those tenets, you recognize everyone right now has the right to express themselves at a level that gives them a voice. And this should be a good time for people who love the tenets of democracy. And I'll say this, and then I'll give up the mic. Every country in the free world right now is right here. First time in the history of the world, there has been a connecting global issue that has put people on sides without race, gender, sexuality, and money. It's an issue that everyone in the world, for the first time in the history of the world, we are global. And guess what? I can't look over to Spain and see how they're doing it. I can't look over to Africa and see how. We now are grappling with it. And guess what? You have to feel the pulse and the pace of the people. And there's no one you can look to say, how to do this? Because they're struggling just like you. And that's the beauty of this moment. We are thinking. We are thinking. We are challenging authority. And it is good and it's healthy. It makes us uncomfortable. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But it's important.
Can I just add to that really quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jean.
No. Go ahead.
Let me just add to that. While I agree mostly, but I still think, and I would die on this thought, unless we begin to connect inwardly, that's where the answers are.
Absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. You have to stop the external only living and looking at life, because that's how people are able to condition you. That's how people are able to tell you, this is how you should think, this is how you should feel about a thing, this is who you should follow, this person's a good person because whatever reason they give you. And because you haven't taken the time, you don't meditate, you don't care what you put in your body, not really, right? You allow all sorts of information to funnel into your consciousness, and then you expect to know which way to go. People take advantage of that. So they can feed you things because you're looking so much for something, anything, God, Jesus, truth, whatever it is you're looking for, love, sex, a man, a woman, a dog, you're looking for something, and you find these things, you fill yourself up with these things, and you still feel empty, lost. And so you're searching, you're making someone else responsible for how you live or what decisions you should make. When that person fails in your view, you're going to get angry at them. When we say hold someone to account, start first here.
Within yourself.
You must. But how can I do that if I am full of rage, anger, post-slavery syndrome, whatever? Even our ancestors, their descendants are dealing with guilt. How could my great-grandfather do this to people? How could my we got rich off of, people are going through a lot of, it's all coming up. Because of this stuff, it's all coming up.
It's almost like a cleanse in one way.
It is, right? It is a cleanse.
And a wake up.
Intrapersonal, interpersonal, and mass. What you're saying is that a part of the essence of who you are is interpersonal, understanding yourself. And when you understand yourself, it connects to something or someone. I obviously have very strong religious views, but this is not the place for it. But what I will say is that there's intrapersonal, and when somebody's intrapersonally grounded, as Enda said, they connect to something and someone. And when you're connected, you become grounded. It's like a charge force that connects you, it centers you. And what Enda's saying is that when you lose that center, you are susceptible. Center and susceptibility. So in the context of what she's saying, to give it construct and context, if you are uncentered, you are susceptible. The people that can stand are people that have got three things that if you look through society, that centers them. Family, historically, look it up. Family, faith, and friends. If you look at any society that achieves anything significant, the three things that they have a grounding on is who they are. If you look at wars, everything, it centers around what is your value system. And here's what's happened. If you look at Bermuda, what has been our value system for the last 300, 200 years? You know what it's been? It's been money. We have prided ourselves in being, and so, oh, we're the third richest country in the world. Or we talk about what we have, and I have this, and or get a piece of the rock. So it's always been about getting, securing. And how we see our value is anything that takes away from our assets, we consider a threat. I'm going to say that again. We consider value anything that takes away from our asset base, we identify it as a threat. So right now, people are crying, not because the intrinsic value of who they are is being threatened, is because their asset base is being threatened. That's changing. What centers you, what governs you, and when you're governed by moral principles and structures, everything else makes sense. That's why I said, if you started the vaccine, you're playing into an agenda. And the agenda is, how can I separate and control and take what we believe? Anyway, I'm going to go too deep. Oh,
No,
sorry.
this is good.
If you look at World War II, if you look at the Great Depression, more assets were given, more millionaires were made during the critical times in history when people were starving and hungry. Facts. Don't fact check me.
Yep.
Right? You look after the Depression, after the recession, there's a group of people that benefit from this. I mean, when I say this, I mean
Always.
the confusion,
Always.
the
Right.
fear.
The division.
Because
Yeah.
what happens when people are scared, whenever they're fearful, they hold in.
Yeah.
And guess what? There are beneficiaries of the confusion. Emotional beneficiaries, political beneficiaries, on both sides of the aisle. There are people who benefit from the confusion that exists right now. There are individuals who I call intellectual parasites, that they like the fact that they have information that the other person don't know. So they got a chance to wield their information over people because they believe that that information makes me more superior. And so why my spirit connected with what Enda said is that if we're going to move on, Bermuda, we have to understand what our center is. What has been our triggers? Why do we react a very visceral way when certain things are attacked?
and pull away from the things that stereotypically give us comfort. Because when you separate the whole thing, it's not about the vaccine. It shouldn't be. It's about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's about voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's about respect. It's about how do you see me in my environment when I look and behave just like you. And because I disagree with you, do I lose my voice? And on the flip side, there's another conversation of what is the right of the state to protect its people from the worst that exists in the world? And do they have a right to put in powers and legislation that protects us against the worst of ourselves? I'm not answering that. I'm saying these are the conversations that everyone is having. And that's why when Enda started, I said, I love it. I love it because people are thinking. Leaders are emerging. People are now asking questions. People are sitting at the table where mommy and let me be from the eye perspective.
Yeah.
In my household, of which we typically see eye to eye on most critical things, we have significant differences.
Yeah.
And for the first time, there are people that I love dearly. And when we sit at the table, we now recognize we are not joined at the hip with one brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because you disagree with me, I don't lose my love for you. I now have to respect your opinion, even though it differs from mine. And because my opinion is different from yours, it doesn't mean I lose my love. It does not mean I lose my adoration. It means that you and I are not the same people. You can be of the same household, be married, and be different. You can be of the same political party and be different. That is the beauty of the salad bowl that I talked about. Be respectful and responsive. But guess what happens in Bermuda? We don't support individuality. So if you look at the arts, you go to a school kid and you ask what they want to do, 15 of them want to do the same thing. The one person in high school that was different, we all called him a nerd, we talked about him. Right? So then all of a sudden, we want people to wake up one day and to challenge authority. Challenging authority does not happen overnight.
No.
It is a process. It is a mindset. And it does not happen when the issue affects you. You stand when it's that person that's trying to get to the city of Hamilton and they say that there is no equal access to me because my wheelchair cannot fit. It when a little boy is trying to go to school and he's walking into the schools and his learning style is not taken into consideration because he learns differently and he's forced into a system that does not take into consideration he is. Is a young girl that walks into an environment because she dresses differently and looks differently. She walks into work and everybody's criticizing her and chastising her. It's about the woman who has to walk into an environment and all the people around her judging her because she may have done something differently. And we're comfortable with our silence because we then have to speak up against people that are close to us. But now when it hits us with the vaccine, we want to get a voice. And I'm okay with it. But speaking up is when the person that is affected is not you.
Bravo. Look, you know when you capture an audience and everyone stays silent, you know you're winning.
We're thinking.
Yeah,
It's thinking.
it's
We're
thinking.
thinking.
Well, yeah, and
Processing.
it's provoking a lot of thought to give thanks to Dwayne and Enda because the messaging has been very profound. And this is my space. I love this because now
This is the outlet.
you've removed all the material, tangible things, and you're going into that intangible realm. You know, now we're starting to talk about self-reliance. Now we're starting to talk about the inside-out approach, personal responsibility. And unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, this is something that's been very foreign to us for the most part. Because we tend to live mindlessly. We tend to just exist. And we just flow with the currents one way or the other. And everything seems comfortable because everybody else is doing it. It all looks fine. You know, I kind of fit in. I'm accepted. You know, it's okay. And now, what we're sharing is that we've embarked upon something that's very different. You know, and you're right, Dwayne. It's not hitting us. It's not separating us based on economics, based on class, based on race, based on religion. It's totally different. And it's a phenomenon that everyone's having to deal with around the world. But what responsibility are we willing to take? I remember when we were here with Seafood Reginald Can, and I was having a conversation with him, and he said, a lot of people are coming into his office, and they're just stressed because they're under so much pressure. family, friends, look, you need to do this, to on them. And they're like, I don't feel comfortable. So he said he would sit them down and say, okay, so strip away all the pressures. Take away your family. Take away your work colleagues. Take away the pressure of the commercials. Take away what government's saying. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And they will go quiet. Because they don't know how they feel. They're not accustomed to having to make decisions like that on their own. So they really don't have a position. And this is what makes us susceptible. And we have to realize, this is not the only phenomenon that challenges like this. We've been challenged like this all our lives. Maybe we haven't recognized it.
I know.
But people take advantage of situations like this. We're being taken advantage of all the while because we don't know where we stand. We don't recognize ourselves. We don't have a position. We're not, as Enda said, taking the time to think about these things. We're not meditating. We're not being mindful about what information we allow in terms of what we watch or what we listen to. We're not considering the foods that we eat and the impact of them. All of these things we take for granted. And then all of a sudden, we're in a situation like this and we're expected to be able to show up and make a decision that's in our best interest, personally, and in the interest of our family and the community. It's a lot.
And we haven't fortified ourselves. And that's the problem. The problem is whatever shows up. Where we're at now is pushing us into a space, which is why we're so uncomfortable. And we're spilling out all our truth and ugliness. I can't even look at Facebook and the comments anymore. We are deplorable to each other. It is ugly.
It is.
It's almost like we really are living amongst people who talk like this to each other, feel like this about each other. The name calling, the disrespect, it's unbelievable. And yet that's the truth that we've always done it, I suppose, but we tend to have been more respectful. I think we struggle with self-knowledge, self-identity, self-revelation. Now we have to face it because it's all coming up. We don't know what to do with it. Because when someone said to you, in the time of peace, fortify yourself or chew up your storehouses. Because there is a time that's coming of famine. Right? In the time of plenty, prepare yourselves. Look at an ant. See how they operate. Watch nature. They prepare. They know the winter's coming. So when the harvest is full, they get themselves together. We haven't done that. We've reveled. We've played. We've done God knows whatever it is we choose to do. So now in this time, we find ourselves scrambling, struggling with our internal world because it's a mess and it's showing, right? It's showing. Not everybody. I don't even want to lump it all in one basket. There are well-educated people. There are people who meditate, who yoga, whatever you do. There are people who have been contemplating, finding out about themselves, fortifying themselves. Those are the voices, mostly now, that you hear rising. They're unafraid. Someone who was quiet 3 years ago for an issue that was big, now they're coming out. They're not necessarily telling people get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. Like Dwayne said, they're saying stand up for your freedom. Stand up for what they're trying to take from you. But you don't even know that you have a right to do that because you're so afraid the government's going to get me. Why? Because we're used to economic terrorism from governments. We're used to being bullied from government. My grandmother was terrified of UBP. Terrified. She voted for them, not because she was supportive of Lois Brown Evans and what she was doing. She was terrified of UBP in that era, in that time, right? Then you found PLP came along and they did some very questionable things in their first reign, and people held them to account and managed. You know what the response was? Oh, well, he was fine when UBP was doing it. Problem. That's a problem, but you couldn't see it. OBA has come along and people were mesmerized with OBA, and people felt hope and something new and different. And it may have been, it could have been, but some people felt, I'm not going down that road because it's just the UBP in a new face. It was a lot of discussion around what was coming up, but we were bit by bit, speaking up more and more. Sherry J had a lot to do with it. She had a talk show that people were able to come on and say things they would never say in public. Oh my goodness. My grandma didn't even talk about things around the dinner table that were too sensitive. She wouldn't do it. A lot of things I didn't find out about Bermuda till I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk about it. My grandma said it's out there. I'm not bringing it in my house. It was a haven. But what it did, it left us uninformed, uneducated. We didn't leave him equipped with the world around us.
Yeah.
Wow, I did learn wonderful things. I learned how to garden because my grandma had gardens. I learned how to milk a cow. I hated it, but I learned how to do it. I learned how to milk a goat.
Milk a cow?
Yeah, we had to milk a cow. Okay?
And the chickens.
And we had fresh.
And
We
the
had
milky cat.
fresh.
I should be talking about milk.
No, probably not.
We had fresh. We had fresh.
Merle
Cow's
didn't
milk.
try
Hello, if I was a DJ, I could have done
Yeah.
right there.
We had fresh cow's milk. We had
Love
fresh
it.
goats, but I never touched it because when my first years of living, my parents were married, and when I turned 7 or 8 or something, they separated. So I had to go live with my grandmother, my mother's mom. Very earthy, very wise,
Love
a
it.
solid woman, right? I walked in that house. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean. I didn't know how to wash clothes. I didn't know nothing about a garden. I
And
didn't
nothing
even know
about milk with a cow.
nothing. I was a little prima donna in the world that I came from.
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 4.
My dirt.
And I was spoiled.
Done.
Yeah, I was spoiled, honey. I was on my daddy's
Oh.
knee constantly. But my
Couldn't
grandma,
cook.
my grandma wasn't broken down. She said, "Wait a minute, you don't wash this. You don't."
Mercy.
I cried a lot, but I learned a lot. But she was very, very deliberate. She taught me how to live in the world, but she didn't want to expose me to the world.
That's good.
Right? So when I got out here and I want to learn and I ran around with people like the Caines, you have to be exposed if you're going to be around these guys, right? You learn more. I learned a lot at my friends' table that I wasn't learning at here.
Yeah.
Then when I went to college, I went through so many shocks in college. I didn't even know basic names. Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King. I didn't know basic names. I felt like, where the heck have I been living for 16 years, 18 years? Where have I been? So I began to have a voice, just being exposed to different things. I began to have a wider range of eyesight, just being exposed to different things. When I came back to Bermuda, that first college experience, which was awful, but I came back open. I now said, well, let me go find this information. I read Marcus Garvey's autobiography and Malcolm X, and I went and found the information. This is what I mean. You have to now, once you're open to something, are you interested and curious enough about your own knowing and well-being to inform yourself? It's important.
I want to deep dive now because we're dealing with some stuff that I'm just loving Eugene and then they're pulling the layers off the onion. You look at it, onion. My sense of humor is okay.
I love it. I love it.
So
Your daughter's shaking her head.
For my sense of humor. So now let's deep dive. You took us to a place. Now let's take the layers off of it. John Maynard Keynes, the father of modern economics, he says, in order for there to be rich, there must be poor. Now, if you understand capitalism, it means for you to enjoy the quality of life that you've come to know, understand that there's some person in the world that goes without. I didn't make the rules up. That's just how it is. Remember, we are a consumerist-based environment. So everything that we get, there's someone in the rest of the world that makes it, and they are not making it at market value. Right? So for us to enjoy everything that we have, understand that there's someone in the world that goes without. Okay? So now when you understand economics, you then stretch to Bermuda. In Bermuda, we had and have one of the largest middle classes in the world. Now listen to me. lower middle, middle, upper middle. And then you have the working class or the working poor, and you have rich. In a country, there's usually three voices that rise. The youth, who are exuberant, nothing to lose besides the future. It is the poor that ain't got nothing to lose, and the rich who say, you can't take what I have. The middle class are where the silence and the complacence lives. Why? They have kids in schools. They have mortgages, right? They have bills. They have reputations. So that usually is the segment of the world that lives and suffers in silence. Now remember what I said. We have the largest middle class. One of the largest broad middle class. And guess what happened? For years, that group has been silent. And they have been silent with very strong opinions. And in their sphere of influence, they will say what they needed to say, but they were always scared to speak outside of the capsule, because if they did, they knew it was a consequence. Listen to me now. What happens is there is a passive-aggressive nature that takes place that becomes a part of your cultural DNA. Let's say that again. There's a passive-aggressive attachment to your DNA where you learn to say everything behind closed doors. Because if you speak out loud, it is attached to something that they can take from you based on the society of which you've established your values in.
Yes.
So then when you see countries where there are strong voices, they're usually coming from those margins. They're not coming from those. It's a young guy, Tiananmen Square, and the rebellions in the fruit farmer down in Tunisia, right? There was a fruit farmer, his name was Mohab Bouazizi. And in 2012, this man, listen to the story now, this man was 18 years old. His mother was a single mother, and he had a sister, and he was a fruit vendor in Tunisia. Every day he would get up, leave his seat, and he would go to his fruit stand. And one day, a gentleman who was a police officer came with a stick and smacked him and said, "You need to get up, and you need to leave." Mohab Bouazizi got up and left. He did that next day. He saw him because he hadn't paid his taxes with his fruit stand. The next day, the guy came with a whip, beat him. Mohab Bouazizi stayed and took his licks. He said and purposed in his heart. He went home. He saw his mother struggling. He saw his sister needing to go to school and knowing he had to pay for their money. He said, the next time it happens, I'm going to take a stand. The next time it happened, do you know what he did? He set himself on fire. Burnt himself to a crisp. He went into the hospital, and the day that he died, it started an uprising, and it was called the Arab Spring. And it started that movement in the Middle East, where you saw it in Tunisia, you saw it in Egypt, and you saw it all over. But most people don't know how it started. It started from a young man who was fed up. And he was fed up with the government and what they were doing for him. And while I do not advocate setting yourself on fire, he changed the landscape of the world in terms of, in that whole, he changed government systems. The people, we all saw it, 2012 to 2015. We saw what happened in the Arab and the Muslim country where these folk, we saw what happened in Egypt. It was before our eyes. We saw what happened in Tunisia. We saw what happened in that region. But there was one young man who said, I've had enough. What I'm saying is that the middle class in Bermuda is the largest base of influence and power. And they're the ones who got the kid in school. And so when they come in, the single mother, the people who are working every single day, they got the kid in school, they have to do the mortgage, all that stuff. So guess what? You know, I can't go out and say everything. So what happens when I go with function? So you and me come down in March, and then the next day I don't have it. And so what happens is, you suck in. And that has happened for over at least 150 years. So now what happens is, as I talked good about Facebook, but what it's also done is made Facebook champions. And so we believe once I send an email, I have exercised my demons and my voice because I've sent an email. Well, I'll say to everybody else, we need more than Facebook champions and Twitter warriors and people that can hide behind a Facebook
keyboard.
and or send anonymous WhatsApps around Bermuda with a voice
Come on,
and a
talk
name.
about it.
Right? Because what that does is it drills in to the passive aggressive psychological nature of us to put everything out there with having nothing on the line. So we want Eugene to go out, we want Enda to go out, we want everybody to go out and say, you tell him. And Eugene's looking around and saying, we're salty nuts. I don't see it.
Yeah.
That's his nickname, by the way, not him actually. Where is he?
Yeah.
You were just the one telling me, let's stand up. But well, no, man, I had a meeting with my cousin on my mama's side. He said, no. This is not for me. This is for us.
Yeah. To me, there's no excuses.
And so my point is, in order for us to move on, we almost have to understand the DNA of who we are.
Yes.
Our motto is quo fata ferent, and it is translated in where the fates lead, or looser where the wind blows. That is our motto. Now, and I'll leave you on this in terms of so Eugene can speak. 3 things that we always have to look at when we're dealing in our personal space, governmental space, and in our leadership space. Ego, reputation, and character. Say that again. Ego, reputation, and character. Ego is what other people think of you. Right? Excuse me. Ego is what you think of yourself.
Right.
And it's built usually on what other people think of you, right? And you can have a big ego, small ego, but it is very selfish in nature, your ego. Your reputation is what others think about you. And that usually drives us negatively because in Bermuda, in a small community, we are very concerned with how things look and what other people say. So it's ego that's internally driven, reputation, what others think, and the last thing that we have to focus on is character. Character is the value of who you are, and it is connected with a cause and a purpose. It is governed by some basic principles around faith, around integrity, and in love. We have never forced our leaders, we've never forced our families, we've never forced the people around us to operate with a strong character. We focused on the things that are centered around ego and reputation. So when you give ego and reputation, it all boils down to self. When you work at your character, it automatically focuses on something greater than yourself and others. So if Enda's voice is going to be heard, we have to strip Bermuda of the general desire to focus on self and what other people think, and genuinely connect to something that is much more fluid and based on who we are.
Thank you.
Big things. Big things.
Go ahead, Eugene. Enda, you want to say
Yeah, I
something?
do. I do. Because to me, it boils down to it just boils down to that self-knowledge, self-revelation, self-identity. We are struggling with that. Self-identity is tremendous, right? So when we talk about self-knowledge, self-revelation, how did we even get to that? When we are constantly being fed and it's constantly being poured in us who we should be, what you should be doing. You ever heard this growing up? Oh, you know better. You know better. You know better. I remember one day my mama said to me, you know better. I said, how do I know better? How? Will I just wake up one day because I'm a certain age? Because that's what you're old enough. You know better than that.
Yeah.
How? If I am not taught, if my influence is weak, if what I'm exposed to is the cows and the vegetables in the garden, why am I going to wake up at 21 and be mature and know all these things about me when I've been sheltered? So what is it that you're asking of me? And then we get into these conversations of, I just have to go there, about We have now what we call a black government. That's what we do. It's a common language in Bermuda. So why, if we are in power, we're not doing better? Why? Wonderful question. Why are we looking out more for our own people? Why is this government being influenced by whomever, whatever decisions they're making and why? It doesn't seem to be for the entire populace. It seems that they're missing their mark because people are uprising. You're going to get uprising, okay? The matter of a government to me is how you deal with it, what terms you come to, how quickly you come to terms with things, and how well you can manage it so that people move away into a more comfortable space. Not being dismissive, not disregarding, not saying, well, it's only a little bit of you. None of that, but actually dealing with it, right? Okay, let me get to my point. We are dealing with a black government. We are dealing with a majority of black people in Bermuda. We are dealing with very powerful people, and I mean across the board, from the lowest to the highest, and whoever makes up those decisions, I don't know, echelons of society. People are emerging. Like Dwayne says, leadership is emerging from everywhere, right? My issue or my thoughts, what I contemplate, we still come from a very unhealthy place. How do you get people, because governments are made up of people, how do you get people to become healthy in their thinking, in their thought? How do you get people to not be so needy and so wanting, so that anybody can come and tell them something and they can see pie in the sky for them and their family, and to hell with the rest of us? How do you come from a space of there is enough, or as the 23rd Psalm says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want? How do you get to that place? I have a story I want to tell you. I want to tell this story because it's so significant to me. It has changed my life so dramatically. I am a person at one point in my life, I loved going to every workshop that said anything about spirituality. I loved it. If it was I don't care if it was in California, I don't care where it was. I was getting on a plane and I was going. I don't care if it was 3 days, 7 days, or 10 days. I was going to make it work. And so that was a period of my life, right? In one of these workshops, I heard this story. I think I must have cried for the rest of the workshop. I could not move past this story. There is a man, his name is Dr. Eugene. This is a story taking place in Hawaii. True story. This man, no, it's a true story, but I might get some of the pieces
That's
a little
okay.
mixed up.
Yeah.
But you can look it up because it's a true story. This man was a clinical director of a mental asylum or a mental ward in a hospital, right? One of those. He was called by the board of directors of this facility for 2 years. And for 2 years he said, no, I'm not coming. They needed someone because the turnover rate was so high. This hospital dealt with the criminally insane. So what we would call the underbelly of the earth, the worst of the worst. The sociopath, incurable. No help. These are people who were chained in their rooms because they were so violent. And for 2 years he said, no, I'm not going to come. Finally, he said, you know what, if you keep calling me, it must be a greater call. This must be for me to do. So he goes and does it. On condition. He's not going to interact with the clientele or the staff. He wants a full, dossier? He wants full dossier and a picture, a recent picture of each client. And for 8 hours, he's going to go in his office and he doesn't want to be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to do that until he says he'll come out and interact. That was the condition. That's what he did. Dr. Eugene developed what we now call Ho'oponopono. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. 4 statements, okay? He concentrated on the face, and after reading all of their issues and all of their diagnoses and all of their criminal history, and he said, if it comes to me, that means it's resident in me. So if I am going to assist him, I have to find it in myself and clean me and watch it translate into his health. Within 4 years, he was able to clean a whole ward. Meaning they were reintroduced into society and tracked and tracked, documented, and no societal issues. Again, true story. Okay? Once he did start interacting in the community of his job, he was teaching the clients, say it every day, all day. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Say it all day, every day. The staff, the turnover was so high, they were frightened to go to work. At night, the toilets were flush, the showers would run, nobody's in the bathrooms, the windows would slam. It was madness. People were terrified. And he was able to come. This is a man, he talks to the room. He believes everything has life in it. He respects humanity at its core. He has an intrinsic understanding of our own health and wholeness and wellness. It's resident there. But how do I access it? How do I connect with it? And then how do I make it last? Because we need permanency. Because history keeps repeating itself, right? In ways that we don't enjoy, we don't feel comfortable with. And we say, oh well, if we don't learn from our mistakes, we'll repeat them. So where's the learning? Where is the learning? Where's the teaching? Where's the implementation? Why is not my inner world as important as physics or math or history or civics? Why isn't that as important? Because it's from here that all of these things happen and develop, and we grow from that. So if this is unhealthy, how are we expecting a healthy society? How? I can have 1,000,000 programs. I've developed some of them. When I do my work with my clients, if you are not willing to deal with love, internal love, self-acceptance is a big part of our problem. I need you to accept me, but I can't accept me. I'm going to be angry at you because you don't look at me with respect. But I can't look in the mirror and respect me. How am I even having that expectation? But we are not connecting dots. And so we find ourselves in spaces that I hate to say it, most of the times we are creating.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
But until I can begin to understand that, until I can come to terms with my own environment, I'm going to have a hard time accepting. So it's easy to be in the wind, to float here and there. Because I don't want to take the time. I don't want to cry the tears. I don't want to self-reflect. I don't want to resolve my stuff. I don't want to do it because it hurts. Because it's more uncomfortable than shouting at you about something you're doing to me. So I don't want to do it. And a lot of times, if I can't find a friend to hold my hand through it, it's hard. Some of this stuff can be very psychologically damaging. Our own systems will shut down from memories in defense to keep us going because the memories are so treacherous. But when you heal, little by little, you start having a dream. I used to do it. I used to say to my sister, I had a dream about that. My older sister, who remembers more than I do about our growing up, would say, that actually happened. So what I began to understand was as I became more fortified, as I became healthier, my subconscious could release some of the things that were holding me back so that I can be at peace, bless it, and let it go. Right? Now, a lot of times we hear we have a choice. Right? You did that, you knew better, you made that choice. I question, are we really making that choice? Or are we being directed? Are we being, what's this word I'm looking for?
What, condition?
No, not condition. Are we being pushed or
Control.
by trauma? Or it might not necessarily be trauma. It might be a happy space we were in. But is that dictating? That's the word.
Right,
are we being dictated to by something that we don't even know is resident because we don't take the time to go in there and find stuff out, right? Things may hit on the edge of our mind, tickle us, something's there. Oh well, we look at TV series.
I'm not going to ask a question.
I'm not. And a lot of times for our parents, it's difficult to take them there. You say, when I was younger, this happened. What did that mean? Some parents may say, we're not going there. Leave it alone. It's in the past. Why you want to bring all that stuff
Yeah.
up? Some parents will say, okay, you're old enough. Let me sit you down and tell you. But be ready, because truth.
I think that's one of the issues, because I've grown a lot from my experiences in the last 2 years,
Right.
personally,
Right.
and I think what's really tough is when I look around and I know that people know and think that something's not right with this picture. They just turn a blind eye to it, because it takes serious courage and strength and mental strength to really know and absorb the thought and accept that what is going on is not right. And when you go deep and you really think about what is going on, it is scary. I even get scared. If I go really deep and then I look at my 3 kids, I get scared. Like, is this really happening? Is this the world we're really living in right now? And that's scary for people. You think I would love nothing more than to get up in the morning, look at my 3 kids, send them off to school like we used to, pick them up, they go to their sport, I pick 1 or 2 countries to go visit throughout the year, I get excited to go see my husband on tour. You think I don't want to wake up and live that life? I could if I wanted to, because I could turn a blind eye, right? And ignore everything that's going on. But I can't, because I have a conscience. And this is why we're doing a show like we are today, and this is why I started it. Because a lot of people need an outlet, and I was one of them. I needed somewhere to go. I could talk in my yard, I could talk to my family, and I feel like I was patient enough, I waited long enough, and I said, well, now it's time. And I'm just so proud of everybody that's built the courage to come out and talk, because there's nothing wrong with having a conversation and asking questions. And I've said this before to my kids, there's no such thing as a dumb question. What's wrong? Why? My biggest battle right now is that I don't quite understand why we can't ask questions. Why is it that you can have, because I'm going to go on topic with the rules and regulations, but why is it that you can have a gathering of 100 people one day, but then it drops to 50 within 2 days? Why is it that someone's being forced to go into a government facility and pay for it because of a choice that they make? Why is that there's division? Like, I've never seen it before. This type of division is crazy. To be in an environment where, and I was just in one just over the weekend, and it could be my insecurity, it could be my mind, right? Because you guys were talking about finding it within ourselves, but I was at a gathering and I thought to myself, I feel so out of place right now, but I'm here because I'm here for my kids. They get interaction, they're happy, but for the first time, I felt like an outsider because of a choice that I made. To me, an educated choice based on the research and things that I've been told with the jab. And it made me so sad inside, because I'm like, why do I feel like I'm an outsider? Why do I feel like I'm the only person in this gathering that's definitely not vaccinated? But maybe I wasn't. But I've never been in a situation like that, because as you guys will get to know me, I'm very social, I'm very bubbly. I'll walk in, I'll hug, I'll kiss, I'll dance, I love seeing people happy. But in that moment, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've never actually felt like this before. And, people around me, and this is where I think it's a big problem as well. Resentment is not good. So when I feel resentment towards people that casually, oh, I'm going away next week, oh, I'm going away here, I'm going away there, and I'm like, I almost resent it in one way, because I remember when I used to be able to hop on a plane, surprise my kids, not kidding, I've done it so many times, pick them up from camp and have their little suitcases. Mommy, where we're going? We're going on an airplane, we're going to go see Daddy. Get on stage, and it was amazing. But now I'm in a position where, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? My
Cross
husband,
some lines. You're gonna cross
my
some
husband,
lines.
yeah. You know, what are we going to do?
You're gonna cross some lines. You
yeah.
have to.
And why does my
And even the
husband have to
greatest-
apply
Right.
to get back into the country to see his family? Because he's now going back to work after 16 months going back to work where he built his own career for 15 plus years on his own. Why are we now being faced with a situation of what are we going to do? What do we do if he applies for an exemption and he's denied? It comes at so many different angles. You know, he's got to provide for us financially. And he wants to go back touring. He wants to connect. There's that whole thing with being a musician and connecting with your fans, and that's how you, as we all do, right, as humans. Look, it's so nice being here in person and not being on the phone and doing call-ins. We hug each other. You feel a vibe. You know, it's the same thing. And this is just my personal experience and how it's impacting me. I mean, it's coming at all angles for me and everybody on the island. But this is why we have the outlet.
Do you know in Bermuda, in the 70s and 80s, there were individuals that actually were up at the Bermuda Regiment, and they took some very specific positions around not serving in the regiment because of religious reasons. And do you know some of those individuals were actually put in jail? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm saying that to say is that when you start to look at, something you said resonated with me, right? And that is, it goes back to my point, and that is, there are things that have been unjust, and we've actually have been a party to it for a very long time, and we just did not know how to speak. Mm-hmm. And we did not know what our rights were and how to express ourselves in a way that there was movement with our voice. And I don't want us to go back to where you are, because it's a powerful step forward. And what I would like to see is now that we know that there are people who feel morally and ethically disadvantaged from where we are. And I like what you said. You were honest in how you said it. It's resentment. Mm-hmm. And that's an emotion that when you put it on the table, it's honest and it's real. Because some people would not say that. They would just be, oh, it's not. They say, listen, I get kind of messed up when I see somebody traveling. So now what I would like to see us explore is, what are the options that we have with the two activists in our space for individuals who believe that their rights have been infringed upon? And what is your democratic right? What is your moral right? And what is your spiritual right in the country of your birth? Mm-hmm. And so I would like for the conversation to evolve in, if somebody's feeling aggrieved, who's feeling that they know, as Enda was saying earlier, or somebody's now asking for your medical records professionally. Are you vaccinated? Is that a human right that is being violated? And what do I do if I go to work and somebody says, in order to be in this space, you need to be vaccinated? What do I have as a legitimate opportunity? Who do I go to? Do I talk to the ombudsman? That's where I would love to see, it goes in terms of how you deal with the rights of individuals that have been violated, or they feel they've been violated. How do I secure my voice? Because what we have now is frustration is when anger meets with a lack of opportunity or progress is. You become frustrated. Mm-hmm. Frustration benefits no one.
No.
So what we're saying is, let's identify that people are frustrated and they're angry, and how can we channel that into a space where it's beneficial to them as well as the community.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eugene.
Yeah. So I know we have parents. Oh, did you want to say your point about them? Well, you started talking about crossing lines, so I got a bit excited.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That tends to be where I
No,
So
no,
you can
look,
imagine that-
it's all about conversation.
You
to
can
be
imagine
honest.
that I perturbed many adults in my growing up life because some people naturally don't really fall to authority, even if it's good for them. Sometimes it's difficult because if I can't see the value in what you're telling me to do, my natural capacity is to move against it. Because what I value for me is most important, whether it's important to you or not.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine how perturbed the adults were in my life growing up.
Right.
Right, but look what it has led to.
Yes.
Because you're a voice in the wilderness that's being shaped by some higher power, God, destiny, fate. But it's being shaped and you don't even know it. Think of David out in the wilderness with the sheep. He had to protect them. He had to advocate for them. He had to defend them from bears and lions. And people scoffed at it. Oh, you're just a little shepherd boy. Didn't mean it. What did he end up doing, according to the biblical story?
Feeding the lion.
Right. What did he end up doing? Without the armor, without the spears, without all of the training that was formal, but he got the job done where others couldn't. With all of their training, education, equipment,
Right.
right? They're knowing, they're strategizing, being in the war room, great armies, and could not hit the target. A scrawny little boy, full of himself, full of life. You know what he said? He didn't even care. I killed a bird. I killed a lion. He thought it was great.
Yeah, for real.
But he was scoffed. It was like, let's put it in context. You can't do that, Joel. You're not educated. You haven't been exposed to the proper people. You don't know what you're talking about. All the while, you're reading the same books. You are informing yourself with lectures and well-researched people. You're asking pertinent questions, but you have something, guts, courage, the willingness to go and stand before people because you love them. That love and that compassion drives you to do things you would not normally do because those are the people who you most value, who you connect with. They are you. So in many regards, you're standing up for you as you're standing up, for people, right? So you cross lines. If you don't cross lines, you end up in a state of suffering. When I had my son, I was in New Jersey. Quick story. Never driven in the States before. Terrified of a highway. And I needed to get his birth certificate because we were coming home the next day. Couldn't travel without it. And it was a car in the yard. My aunt had promised, okay, I'm going to come home lunchtime, I'm going to take you to your running around, and then I'll drop you off and go back right. Couldn't reach her, so I figured, okay, you're busy, you're in the boardroom somewhere. None of her sons were home. I was there with a baby and had to get home tomorrow. So I had a couple of options. Stay and fuss and carry on and get mad. Nobody's worried about me. I need to get home. I could have did all of that. I could have said, oh well, call the airline and change the ticket because I can't drive. You know what I ended up? I only got the keys. I said, well, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out because I'm going home tomorrow.
Yeah.
I hopped in a car that was not mine, that I could have crashed, killed myself on a highway. And I said, look, God, angels, because I'm going home. That was my focus. I'm going home. So I got in a car. I got on the highway. I got lost. I followed traffic, not knowing where I was going. I kept reading. So one thing my auntie always said, just read the signs. In the States, it's easy. It'll bring you back around.
But when you're not used to it, it's different.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I needed to get home. right? That was my driving force.
What's the worst that can happen? You just go 40
Well,
miles an hour on the highway.
I could have killed myself. That's what could have happened. I got honked a lot, getting in the way of people.
But you stepped out of your
And
comfort zone, yeah.
then I saw one of my cousins downtown, and I said, "Oh, can you take over? Can you drive? Can you take me to the register? I need to bounce." And he was able to do that, but he dropped me. He told me drop him where I found him, so I still had to get back home.
Yeah.
He didn't have that much compassion. My point is, when something begins to shake within you and to drive you and to rise up in you, believe it or not, the answers come. You know what to do. It becomes crystal clear, and then you move on it. Sometimes you don't have the time or space to think. Move on it, because it will work out. I ended up home. I had a birth certificate. I ended up home. My point is a lot of us getting in that space. And when you get in that space, and there are many people who you find to come up and start to speak out, start to call you on the phone, start to send you messages, start knocking on your door and showing up. They want to know, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Let's do it. Let's do it. And then you begin to have uprisings. You do. And then somebody will be really radical in the group and say, well, let's do something more than that. And you might push against people's willingness to, how far they may go to be radical. But my point is, do it in little steps.
Yeah,
Cross lines. Because if we didn't cross some lines, we would still be in situations where we would be enslaved to a greater degree than what we are now, right? We would be in situations where we wouldn't have maternity leave, we wouldn't have health insurance. If we did not cross some lines and push back, we have to do it, and that is for the greater good of society also, right?
Yep.
You have to weigh these things out, like Dwayne was saying earlier. So I'm a pushback kind of girl. It's a natural thing. I don't really think about it too much. I don't. I think about outcomes. I really do. Outcomes. And if people are crying a lot to me, for example, when I went on stage in hunger strike on the Hill, it was because the voice was so loud, even in the silence. The silent majority that Dwayne talks about, the middle class, and they have valid reasons, right? That's why somebody or somebody's always rise up in the midst of the cry, and something happens. Even in the Bible, prophets only showed up when it was time for something to happen. They didn't necessarily live amongst the people. They were out somewhere communing with God or away from. But when God said, get up and go, it was always get up and go, meaning you're not in the midst of them. Get up and go and tell them or do this in their viewing. Because when you show up, something should happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Eugene.
Yeah. Well, give thanks. This has been really wonderful. We've peeled off a lot of the layers.
Of the onion.
Yeah, of the onion, as Dwayne put it. Enda has brought an amazing energy to the table with a foundation in love, which is very important. And the messaging is suggesting that not only do we need to focus on speaking up and protesting, we need to focus on healing. Because how do we get beyond the place where we find ourselves in? And it has to be through healing. Otherwise, we go around in circles. And we keep repeating the same issues over and over differently. So we have to get to a point of healing. We all know about slavery. So what do we do? Do we just say, okay, if you're black, you hate people who are white?
Yeah.
And you just perpetuate that forever? At what point do we acknowledge what happens and work on establishing the measure of respect that's required in the community so that everyone can move forward beyond that issue? So we grow, so that we evolve. And the same thing needs to happen here. Rather than just focusing on the issues that have been created in the community, we need to also be considering, how do we heal from them? We recognize that there is the division. How do we bring the community back together?
Yeah.
You know, how do we get to a place where we're able to function and live with one another and love one another and respect one another? This is very critical. Dwayne has just brought a lot of facts to the table, realities that many times we're unwilling to face because of how uncomfortable it is. It's easier just to ignore these things, like his comments about capitalism. You know, we enjoy a certain standard of life in Bermuda, but recognize that that standard of life comes at the expense of others. That is the reality. That's the nature of what we're dealing with. The conversations we had about the middle class, those are truths. We have to come to terms with it. And when we look around and we realize, like, why is everyone so silent? What is the real cause of it? You know? And these are the reasons. We have to understand that and then address that at the root, because it's very concerning. We have people that are being impacted in serious ways and they will not speak. They're afraid. They're afraid to speak. We've put all our eggs into one barrel. We value material things, physical things, and we're being taken advantage of as a result of that. And in that, we've totally overlooked the internal, the intangible, the intrinsic things that really value us most. Dwayne brought to the table, right, that we've moved away from the character ethic into the personality ethic. So what do we concern ourselves with? What things appear to be rather than what they are. With what we look like rather than who we are. It's all about appearances. I could feel like crap. I wake up, I dress up, I look good, I smile at everybody, I put on a good face, and it's all good. It's theater. It's all theater. And now we've got to the point where that's become the norm. So everybody's just in this theatrical production. Our lives are like a theatrical production. We get up, we act like everything. How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Answer somebody when they say, how you doing? I feel terrible. They'll be suspended in disbelief. They won't know what to say to you. They will totally freeze up because they're not prepared for that. That's not the way you answer. You just say, oh, I'm fine. You make people uncomfortable. Try it. You'll shock people. Or they just keep walking. Or they'll answer you like, oh, okay, that's nice, and keep going. Because that's the program response.
Yeah.
We're not being honest. Everything we're taught to invest in is external. Right? You develop your mind in a school, your spirit in a church, your health, you go to a doctor, your fitness, you go to a gym. What about yourself? And like Enda said, so then after that, how are you expected to be able to stand? How are you expected to be able to cope when everything is external? Even God is in the sky. And then when you look within, oh, that's devil worship. Oh, these people dealing with meditation and all this yoga and what? It's an inside-out approach. It's all in literature. If you speak to anyone, right? Let's go to raising kids, right? What do kids do? What you do? What you say makes no difference. My daughter started saying no to me years ago. What did I have to do? I had to stop saying no. I had to change the way I looked at things and say, you know what? I'm going to tell my daughter what to do rather than what not to do. She stopped saying no. We could say what we like to people. It's what we do that makes the difference. We have to change our own behavior. And from changing our own behavior, we have a natural influence on others. You let your light shine. You be the change you want to see in the world. It starts from within. It's not external. It's very easy to point fingers. But what about us? But we're uncomfortable with that reality. Because we feel lonely, we feel alone. So what do? We pick up a phone, we turn on the TV, right? We turn on music, we do something to distract ourselves away from our own thoughts. Because as Enda said, a lot of times they're ugly. We don't really like the way we're really thinking, how we really feel, right? But rather than feeling alone, be with yourself. Allow yourself to express your true thoughts. That's how we come to terms with ourselves. Then we can start to engage others, right? How do we love others? Loving ourselves. Otherwise, it's impossible. How many times do we form relationships? Where do they go? In the pit. Why? Because we don't know how to love ourselves. How can you love someone when you have yet to learn to love yourself? These are basic, fundamental principles of life. It makes no difference what you think. The sun rises and sets every day, right? It could care less what you think or what you feel. That's how natural law works. Gravity is. It makes no difference what you think. And it's the same thing with these basic principles. Until we start to focus on our own power, our own integrity, our own character, our own strength, we will forever be in a position of pointing fingers and forever be in a position of being dependent on what other people do. We need to find our strengths. We need to set our own paths. We need to find others that think and behave in the way we do. We need to unite and come together and make a stance together. It's up to us. I am sick and tired of hearing about people complaining. What are you willing to do yourself? Stop waiting for someone else to save you. It's not up to someone else. It's up to us.
Thank you, Eugene. Let's take, we have Karen Hodgkins that's going to be joining us. So we'll take a quick little music break. But again, you could follow me on Facebook and Instagram, the outlet BDA. Remember to visit beyondthepandemic.tv. You can tune in to Vibe 103 using the app or on TuneIn or on the website using Chrome and Safari at vibe103.com. I am going to open the lines probably around 12, and the hotline is 232-1033. And I know today at 3 o'clock there is a visual happening at the Cabinet
Prayer
Grounds.
visual. Yeah.
So if you could, before I just play a quick little tune, if you could just elaborate, give the audience some details on that, Eugene, that would be great.
Right. Yeah, so on the Cabinet Grounds, there will be a setup there, and people are gathering, all different types of people, all different types of faith, and people are coming to the table. It's very open, and it will just be coordinated in a way where people can come up and pray. We're addressing concerns. People are going to pray about different things. What's happened is that we're in a situation where COVID has taken over everything, and there's a lot of things that are very important to us in the community that have been just kind of pushed to the wayside, and it's an opportunity for us to come together and pray around those things. So the faith community has been called upon to come, and all those who are interested in coming together and joining to pray together, then just be at the Cabinet Grounds at 3 p.m.
Today, that's
today. Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good gathering. Yeah.
Great.
Good things.
Yes. So I've actually been given permission by my husband to release a song that I am pumped to release. Pumped! All you guys watching on Facebook Live, woo! Pumped! So I'm gonna take a little break and I'm gonna play this song for you to enjoy.
It's the first time it's being released today?
Yeah.
The first time it's released today?
Yeah.
Grown with my family. And corruption won't find them flow. Don't get it twisted, police, they're not your friend. Only working for the twisted agenda. More with the people recommend. And then the governor step in and come and twist the agenda. But all the wicked and bad mind people who only want to see us stumble. Oh Lord, God help me, them is spot all the evil and protect all the meek and the humble. You bless with me family. Post cross the line, I was thinking my vendetta go find you. Don't with me family. The whipping car seats and blind, and you're gonna know when certain people surround you. Cause you know what me I should have been. You know what me I should have been.
That's why they don't so stuff and they put they just make and be good. If
they get it twisted. No can no bad of it run. Be careful of them. Enough of them a property grow. Just a watch them while the weeds don't pull the top of me now. Because it's serious. We not gonna forget no hear how them behaviors. Only evil call for them. And them mysterious. Come on, listen off of them. Them know where we get mad and the work it off of them. Revolutionary setting. We make statement, them just a sentence. So what you take the finger on your internet things? This is make the family and when people say you're straight they things. Cause you don't want me as your enemy. Trust me. You don't want me as your enemy. Who a go stop them? Them on them power tripping. Both conference bullshit bag of dipping. You can't fool me. We tell people start flipping. I know the Kool-Aid but we drink no one sipping. Let's with the family. Post cross the line. I go make it my vendetta go find you. Don't fuck with me family. The thing called seats and blind. And you gonna know when certain people surround you. Yo, cause you don't want me as your enemy. Trust me. You don't want me as your enemy. I wanna see what's right. You're the agent of the street. Under! Not about to say.
So welcome back. Yeah, I love that song. One thing I can say, you know, with music, it's always been one awesome thing about music. You can express yourself. One person I wish was alive today would be Bob Marley. That is something. So welcome back to the outlet. Karen Hodgkins is here. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Yes. Lovely to have you again.
Great to be back.
So Karen's here just to basically touch on the lockdowns and the impact it's had on businesses, etc. So if you just want to go ahead and start talking, that'd be great.
Well, I actually want to touch on something you said earlier.
Yeah.
Before I go there. This week, I was listening to the court case, as some of us had access to the court case against our rights to travel, because basically most of us won't be able to travel until they lift the 2-week quarantine in hotels. And I went to a place realizing I'm a second-class citizen in my own country. And, you know, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Really hurts. It's just very difficult to realize that your own government is going to put you in a space where you are less than other people because you made a choice not to put an experimental drug into your body. That's where I went.
Yeah.
And I felt for you when you were talking about that party. It's, you know, I'm sure I'm watching on the streets, I'm watching the stabbings, I'm watching the people driving. The anger is being manifested in different ways. You know, I felt very sad. I'm also very angry about businesses, the control of the businesses. So I will move on to that, but I just wanted to talk.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's many people out there that are starting to feel that, you know, because we won't be able to travel. You know, so someone says, oh, well, just get vaccinated on Facebook. Well, I don't want to get vaccinated with a drug that I don't know what's going to do to my body.
Or you see, if you're not vaccinated, you're part of the problem.
Right.
That hurts.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible, and I guess it's happening in a lot of places. But
and what my question is this: let's just say you and I went away. You know, we came back yesterday. We're in the government facility, right? And we do our testing because you apparently have to still get tested on day. But based on the last bit of research that I got, because I did reach out to all 6 hotels, and I asked for pricing. I asked if you have a dietary restriction, what your options are going to be. I asked who's going to be picking these people up to get them tested. Is the testing regime going to be still on day 4, day 8, day 14? I asked, is there going to be security? Are you going to be allowed out of your room? So many questions, and this was a few weeks ago, and a couple of them came back unanswered and not sure. But my question is, if you and I go on our day 14 and we get our day 14 test and we test positive, just because, we got it from someone that brought us our food, or just by chance we tested positive on day 14, what are they going to do? Make me stay another 14 days? Or am I allowed now to go home?
That's a very good question. There's a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, I can see that people have said that you have to basically stay in your hotel room. So it's not like you're allowed to go to the pool or anything like that. You're in a room at the hotel.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear that you have scheduled walks.
Right.
And you must walk in a straight line. And this is coming from the horse's mouth.
Oh.
You have your scheduled walk, which you are supervised, and you must stay in line. That's sick to me. Like, that to me is a whole nother level of gross.
Yeah, and why can't we go home?
Exactly.
Why can't we go
And,
home?
I went away. I went through the test. Oh, I was determined. No one's sticking anything up my nose. So I'm like, you cheek swab, spit, something. There's alternatives, man. I do not need to be shoved, have something shoved up my nose. So I got tested, and the regiment came to my house on day 4. I was there with my kids, my husband. What's the problem? Why can't we just do that? Obviously, I don't agree to that even. But, like Enda said, baby steps. Baby steps. Get over this hurdle. Okay, cool. We've solved that one. We'll get over the next one. Okay, cool. And then we'll get over the next one.
Right. So inside you're feeling, sorry.
No, I just wanted to update that apparently after on day 13, if you test positive, then you can go home and quarantine.
Okay, because that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It all makes a lot of sense.
So when you
yeah.
test positive, you could go home.
Oh, okay, cool. So what if I test positive on my day 4 in the hotel? Can I just go home then? Why do I have to stay another 10 days? Anyways, okay.
I know. I mean, I think all of us are questioning it's just illogical, a lot of the things. I mean, even, I talked last time about the businesses and how people were closed, jobs closing. I mean, last year my business closed, and I understood it, but have to say, as an entrepreneur, and I'm going to speak today, not just for myself, but for every single person in Bermuda that had started their own business. I worked in my business 30 years. It's my business. I own the business. Nobody gets to tell me what to do in my business. Last year was a shock. I understood it. We did it.
Yeah.
Because it was something new. Like, nobody knew what was going on. We all went into lockdown. Everybody's business is shut. But to explain it to people that are on salaries, work through this whole epidemic, pandemic. Now it's actually an endemic, which nobody wants to talk about. But it's like taking away your child. Like, this is your baby. This is what you built for me for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've taken away my livelihood. You shut down my business. Like I said, I understood the first time around. The second time, no, I didn't. And I'm going to tell everybody right here, which I've told other people, if they try to do it again,
Mm-hmm.
I am not shutting my business down. I am going to court, and I'm going to be all over the front pages.
Yep.
Because this is my livelihood. I think they should have left the businesses open personally, allowed us to do what we could to survive. I mean, we started businesses and grew them. We know how to maneuver. We know how to do things in business. We know how to make our business survive, right? But shutting it down and then giving us, what, $500 a week? I mean, we talk about a living wage. I've heard over the past couple of years a living wage. Well, $500 a week and $12.50 an hour is not a living wage for any single person, entrepreneur out there. They're employees. What about my employees? They have to live off $500 a week.
If they got that,
And-
because that was the max.
And
correct?
try to pay their rent.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
And we did it again for another 5 weeks. We need at this point for government to say, that they're not going to do any more lockdowns anymore.
Yeah.
They're going to find a different strategy. And I did appreciate the strategy where they allowed us to stay open, gave us some restrictions, but at least we could have some sort of cash flow. At least my employees could have some sort of wage.
And what's interesting is, there were 3 selected hotels that are called trusted venues that was put out on Thursday. It is Rosewood Tuckers Point, the Lauren, and what's the third one? I'm having a brain fart. Rosewood Tuckers Point, the Lauren, Hamilton Princess.
Right.
Thursday. It's in the Royal Gazette, and the article is trusted venues. That, now don't quote me, because it's something along the lines of, I'm thinking to myself, hold on, wait, how did they get that status? What does that actually mean?
They can hold groups of people and they don't have to go through the
exactly. But
the
how do you determine that? So how is this all working? So Hamilton Princess, Rosewood Tuckers Point, and what was the third one I said?
The
Lauren. So
The
is
Lauren,
it that the hotel themselves are hosting these events, or is it outsiders that are allowed to come in to host the events? But wait, also remember, Hamilton Princess is supporting the government quarantine facility. So me and you, Karen, we're rocking up. We're going happy hour. Woo! Party time. You have 10 people that are in a room locked up. Do you know how good I'll feel drinking that cocktail? Not so good. Not so good. So I'm living the high life down there on the beach spot on the waterfront bar, doing my little cheers with my champagne, while a mom and her 2 kids, husband, whether it's husband wife and wife, with whatever, they're locked up in a room because of a choice they made. But I'm having a cocktail. Cheers to you guys up there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
how do you get that status of a trusted venue?
That's a very good question.
But what the thing is, right? What we're in a situation where we're seeing it. When you make the rules, then that's what you do. And you can fashion things however you wish. I mean, we've seen numerous examples. Like, when you make the rules, you're never wrong, are you?
Mm.
Because there's always some clause or some way to justify, right, your behavior or that scenario that is being put to question. So literally what happens, and again, my take on all of this is that this situation is exposing things that have been happening all this time. It's always been like this. Governments pick winners and losers. That's what happens. And they're picking winners and losers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've seen it the whole time. It's just that this situation has further exasperated everything to a point where people are becoming more aware.
Yeah.
But governments have always picked winners and losers. Governments had always made the rules to suit them. There's always been a difference in the things they engage in and that others engage in. And we're seeing that very clearly. I mean, the examples are deliberate. But what's interesting is nobody's following up on that.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for Shaggy coming into the country and leaving, right? Without going through any protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Who actually did that? And why is nobody talking about that anymore?
Yeah.
So it's weak. We bring up stuff, everybody goes up in arms, and then it's the next issue. So it's okay, let's throw a distraction over there.
Yeah.
Now everybody's talking about that.
Divergent.
How did Shaggy get in here? Was it the government? Was it the tourism authority? Right? Was it a particular person in immigration that gave him a blind? Why are we following up on all this stuff? But anyway, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
this stuff happens all the time.
It's just being real. It's just having a conversation and asking questions.
Yeah.
This is all this is.
Well, I think what happens is a lot of times governments, that you make a decision, but you don't look at all the effects of your decision. From their point of view, they might be saying, I can tell from the court case that, I'm going back to that,
Yeah.
that they're making a decision based on one point of view, but they're not looking at how that decision affects all the people in Bermuda, all the other people in Bermuda. Even the decisions on the lockdowns, they did not look at, revenues dropped 70%, 3 weeks before even lockdowns. I mean, have you walked through the Washington Mall?
No.
You walk through the Washington Mall. I counted nearly 15 to 20 units empty. I'd like to know the stats on how many businesses in Bermuda have closed. It's one thing to say, and I understand, like, if everybody was stuck, but you have to look at the consequences to every action. You've had consequences, and you don't do it again. I was really shocked that we had a second lockdown, because you look at the damage that happened last year, and now you're continuing the damage. I mean, in the UK, 200,000 businesses shut down permanently. Canada, 250,000 shut down permanently. The US, it's similar. How many businesses in Bermuda have shut down?
Yeah.
And related to that, how many of those people, jobs? For everybody's closed down, there's jobs related to all those businesses. There's also, with that, you've got all the small businesses. They are what actually make up the engine of the economy.
Yep.
They are the basis of what government collects to be able to do everything they need to do. So you have now crushed your small business by not just having one lockdown, but you've gone to a second lockdown.
Yeah.
And I know all the entrepreneurs out there, I've heard you yelling and screaming, but none of you are coming out and saying anything.
Let's go.
It's time
Let's go.
to stand up.
Let's
This
go.
is your business. You're a private entity. This pandemic has ended. It is now an endemic, which means we're going to see it every year. People who wanted vaccines have got their vaccines. People who don't want to, you're not going to make us.
Mhm.
So let's get on with life.
And do you know that 80% of the 60 or so percent that have been vaccinated are elderly here in Bermuda? 80% of that percentage are elderly people.
Right, the most vulnerable, which is the route, personally, I would have taken, is to make sure all the vulnerable are taken care of and let the economy go and everybody go back, do what they normally do. But the anger, going back to the anger, so you have a lot in the community that are angry. There's a lot of people in Bermuda that don't speak. They are, they will protest, but they will not speak out. And we know that. And yes, that's why we're here, because we're speaking on your behalf. And we hope you will come out and support us.
Even today at 3 o'clock. Come to the Cabinet grounds.
Right. And I don't know if you've seen that the UK, and I'm going to put this out there because I hope the government is listening, the UK is opening July 19th. Fully opening. They are allowing concerts. They are allowing everything to open. And
Wimbledon.
masks
So
will
Wimbledon?
be optional.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to step back from some of the policies that we've been making. These powers, personally, I think it's gone to people's heads. Power over businesses, power over people. They need to step back from this control. You're a government. You're not in control of our lives. You're not in control of our businesses. I get to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen.
And this is where we have to stand. I know Dwayne, in his closing comments, said, okay, so what do we do now? What do we do for all this frustration, all this anger?
And
What
the
steps do we
statement.
take?
Yeah.
And so, civil disobedience is a real scenario. I talked about this last week. It's a real element. It's a tool that's been utilized all around the world, all throughout history, in order to fight for freedoms. It's been a necessary tool. Masks are a symbol of our compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So what I encourage people is let your smile be a symbol of our freedom.
Yes.
It's very psychological. Last night, I was in Flats Village, and a gentleman walked into Flats Village onto the dock where I was sitting off looking at the water, right? In a mask, fishing by himself. I stopped there briefly. I turned around to walk back to my vehicle. He's all by himself in a mask, fishing at night. No one else around. That's programming.
Yeah.
That's conditioning at a level where we're not even really thinking about what we're doing. It's just automatic now. We're just complying. Because we've been asked to do these things, so we're just doing them. We're not thinking about the consequences. We're not thinking about the rationale behind it. We're just doing this stuff because we've been conditioned to do it. We need to break out of that. We need to reclaim our rationale, our objectivity. We need to be able to see and think critically.
And I think, but honestly, businesses need to start standing up. Make your own decisions. When as a restaurant owner, stand up. Stand up. Say, if you would like to wear your mask, you can wear your mask. If you do not want to wear your mask, you do not have to wear your mask.
Right. Just leave it. Just let the thing, it would happen organically. But again, I said this last week. Ultimately, it's the people who end up having to enforce these things. The government's not able to enforce all of this. Mm-hmm. It's the people who do it. It's everyday civilians like us. We are the ones who uphold these things. We make a decision to uphold them or not. That's our choice. That's within our realm, our power. We make those decisions. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you said, you're the government. You're not in control of everybody's life. You don't run my business.
But you know, Eugene, it's fear again. You see, because people get scared. You know,
Right.
So many people are like, oh, Zara, I want to walk into the grocery store and hold my head high and not wear a mask, but I'm scared.
Scared of what?
Are they going to arrest me?
Scared of what? No.
That's that fear.
Well, go and have a conversation with the police then.
Yeah.
Ask them. Right? Even with this hotel quarantine, the emergency powers is given to the Ministry of Health, not the police. The police can assist the Ministry of Health, but it's the Ministry of Health. So if I'm a police officer and the Ministry of Health asks me to assist with the arrest of Enda, I can assist, but then I say, okay, so what do I do for? It's not the police acting on their own volition to do this. That's what we have to ask questions.
Yeah.
We have to do research. Take time to understand. Don't just comply with things just because. Again, civil disobedience has been a necessary tool in the fight for freedoms in the past, and likewise, it's a necessary tool for our fight for freedoms right now. That's what it is. As Enda said, we have to be willing to cross lines. We are upholding these things. We are. It's only because we do these things that they're standing. Right? Go with your gut feeling. Be true to yourself. Be honest. If you're not supportive of this, then don't. And you have company. When there are rallies, when there are demonstrations, support them. All around the world, there will be demonstrations on the 24th of July. Right? And there are plans to have demonstrations in Bermuda Day as well. We need to reclaim our own freedoms. No one's going to give them to you. You can tell all around the world, governments are steadfast in their position. They are going to hold as long as we allow them to hold. They will change when they realize that we've had enough. That's up to us, not them.
That's right.
Now let's open up the lines. The hotline is 232-1033. Thank you, Eugene. Again, you could tune in on the Vibe 103 app. You could go to vibe103.com. You could reach me on Facebook and Instagram, the outlet BDA. Again, we're opening up the phone lines 232-1033 for anybody that wants to just give it an opinion, give any information. Yeah, so we'll take the call. Vibe 103, you're live. Good morning, Vibe 103, you're live. Sorry, just hold on. We're trying to get you on the line. I have my lovely partner in crime next to me. Vibe 103, you're live.
Like a second class citizen.
think we lost them. If you can, just give us a call back. It's 232-1033. Yeah, so we've covered a lot today. That's what I'm saying. I feel like I could sit here all afternoon. Every Sunday I say that. So again, I think we're trying to call in. Okay. Good morning, 513. You're live. Good. Hi, go ahead. You just speak up a little bit because we can't really hear you. There we go. Now we can hear you. Hello, Erica. All right. Yep, we can hear you. Yes. There we go. Yep.
Can she put the audio in the house?
That's okay. That's okay.
Everything, and she got laid off.
You
So
gotta turn
she
off the
comes
mics
to
to
me
get
one
it.
day, just like, oh, my dog forced me to get vaccinated. I'm like, the what? So she left and she went over to her apartment and came back to me. And she said, let me tell you the letter. So she sent me the letter. It didn't say that she was forced to get vaccinated, but it was setting a vaccination date for that Monday coming. So I said to her, you don't have to get vaccinated. It's not mandated by law. You do not have to do it. Do not get vaccinated. If you do not want to get vaccinated, stand up and don't get vaccinated. I didn't see her for a few days after that Monday, the day she was scheduled to get vaccinated, until like around the Wednesday. So it was like she was trying to avoid me or something. I'm like, okay, what is going on? So when I finally caught up with her, I said to her, like, what happened? Did you get vaccinated? She was like, yeah, I got vaccinated. I'm like, why? Why didn't you stand up for your rights? You did not want to get vaccinated. You were adamant about it. You were against it. Why did you just say, well, Erica, I said, why didn't you just walk out? Why didn't you just walk out and take a stand? She's like, well, we all talked about that. But, we're not unionized. So I said, so, whether you're unionized or not, you could have all taken a stand. The power in numbers, you should have all walked out and taken a stand and said, you're not going to put up with it. Because they cannot operate a hotel without staff. So she was like, well, Erica, you know, we needed you down there. I'm like, you don't need me. She's like, but it was one guy that left, and he went to work for another hotel. I said, you should have done the same thing. So then she came to me like, okay, after the first day, she was feeling sick. She was feeling sick, right? So she was there like for a couple of days. She was always sick anyway, but anyway. So what happened was, she told me, like I said, one of the guys left. So she said, well, I'm thinking about going work down at, what's that new hotel now? Regis built?
Regis.
It's that new hotel they just built.
Regis.
St. Regis.
The Regis, yeah. I said, it's too late now. You already had to jail.
So what we've heard just now is someone call in and say that Bill Gates has been to the Lauren, and Bill Gates has been afforded the opportunity to speak with the staff, and that he has requested that all the blacks and the, what did you say? The blacks and the Hispanics get vaccinated. And someone responded to that and said, well, why don't you and your wife get vaccinated? And that person was suspended for a few days from work without pay. Then the callers further going on to talk about the coercion that's being used to force people in taking the vaccine. And it brought up something that Dwayne was talking about earlier about how there's so much focus on what we stand to lose. And we talked this about value systems. So now what's happened is that because there's so much focus societally on material things, we actually put more value on material things, money, property, our belongings, than we put on ourselves. So we're clearly against our own will, willing to put ourselves at risk in fear of losing material things.
Yeah, let's take this call.
And at that point, you're already loyal. Wow.
513, you're live.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, good morning to you all. Hey, let me start with when I left to go college. I went to a little small college in Atlanta called Morris Brown. I heard one of your presentations this morning about when I left school, when I left the island, I was totally unprepared, which was correct. I grew up in a household where children were seen and not here. So I never got to sit around the table with my elders and listen to exactly what was going on the island. So that left a big hole until I entered into this little tiny college. And one of my minor classes was African history. But where I got most of my learning from was at the African class at Spelman or Morehouse, where they took us back, and I mean back from the time where they put chains and took me off the continent and brought us all the way up. Now, I went to school in the 80s, came back in the 90s, because I attended Morris Brown, and then I turned to Cornell University. That was a whole different kettle of fish. But let me stay on topic here. What we are raising today is what I call the keyboard warrior. We got a lot of people who complain by keyboards, then actually put the feet in the street. For an example, You had the propagate. Propagate, we only could stand up on the fringes of the village for only carriers for so long. We don't have nobody coming up behind us that we could pass the torch to carry on this battle. This battle was going to belong at us. Now, going through this COVID situation, that's us back, way back to the Tuskegee Airmen situation. You know, I don't trust nobody come to me telling me that I have to do something that I'm against. Prime example, I am now sitting grappling with a situation. I have to go have eye surgery at Leahy. Do I now have to go get vaccinated to leave the island, to go to Leahy, to come back just because I need to get eye surgery? That means that you have to agree to have the shot. And right now, that is not sitting well with me. And on top of that, now they're coming after my 2 children. My job is to protect and to provide. Until I see someone else's children have this death life, i.e. Mr. Burt. If I see Mr. Burt and his children have this death, then until I see it with my own 2 eyes, don't tell me he had it, and don't tell me that they had it. He cannot legislate law for me and another set of rules for somebody else. Don't tell me you have the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. That is just, where does that happen to? I thought we were in the 21st century. You come out and you walk in a straight line. You know where that straight line came from? That straight line came from back in Hitler's days and the concentration camp, and you walk right behind the person in front of you. You do not go to the left, you don't go to the right, you stay straight ahead of him. And that's how that happened. And we are now back in the 21st century. So what they're trying to tell me, that my history before me adds up to absolutely nothing. When I take my history from the lessons from Martin Luther King, the lessons from Malcolm X, the lessons from Nelson Mandela, the lessons from Desmond Tutu, all those guys that have fought this battle for us, for now, and we can't even get up and carry the battle on for ourselves. Now, I'm going to finish with this. I think it came on the City Hall, Compton City Hall, where they had this thing on freedom. I was listening to this guy just the other day explaining what does freedom mean to him. And he was almost on point. He said freedom is the ability to act and walk and talk stand up for oneself. That is where we are. We shouldn't have a government to legislate laws put in place for one and then one for another. It's just not fair, but the people are weak. The government knows you all ain't gonna do nothing. That's the same problem that Chris Robert is having with this law that they put in place for this certification. Who's going to stand up? We cannot put feet in the streets behind keyboards. Keyboards do not win battles. We have a war to win. We're going to lose some scrimmages, but we can't do it behind the keyboard. It will be interesting to see the amount of people that's going to show up on a Sunday afternoon with absolutely nothing going on in Bermuda at the Cabinet Ground. That is my point. You guys have a good day. Talk to you all later.
Thank you so much, Cola. Yes, I do hope that people do come out at 3 o'clock today, because it's going to be extremely peaceful, and I'm actually really looking forward to it. And, you know, to touch on the Freedom Square, like I've mentioned, and I see you caller calling through. I'm just gonna we'll take it in 2 minutes. I'll make this very short. But like I mentioned a few weeks ago, this whole experience through the pandemic, I've actually started learning history, and about Bermuda. And I would like to point out that in Bermuda in 1959, there was a boycott against the theaters. One in particular, I know that his name was Eugene Woods. He was a member of the progressive group. He was the founder of PLP, one of the first chairmen of PLP. He was a founder member of the tennis club. That's a little history on my side too, because I don't know if people know, but I was Bermuda's #1 tennis player for many, many years, and that was an incredible experience. That's where I am today, and it taught me a lot. But
Right, Zara.
yeah, but I'm ill now. But I'm ill. I went out when my third child was about 6 months old. She was down, and I took one deck because I thought I was 20, and I was like, yeah, this ain't for me no more. So you back to Eugene Woods, and he helped with the he was restructure of the BIU, and he was also the secretary of the BIU. Then you had Dr. Erskine Simmons. He was a member of the progressive group, and the progressive group are the ones that ended the segregation. And it was a group of young men that started underground, and they didn't want their names to be known, their faces, none of that, because they were aware of what could potentially happen to them. And people collected in Hamilton. And it's very relevant in these times because I think it was definitely Eugene Woods when I was listening to the clip of him speak. Yes,
So
go ahead, Dwayne.
let me jump in for you just to give you So progressive group were a group of Bermudians who actually realized that segregation had to be challenged and had to be dealt with. If you think about Bermuda at the time, everything was segregated: how we worship, the government systems, as well as how we socialize. In Bermuda, right in the area of where you now see City Hall, but specifically Boyle's, remember Boyle is on Church Street?
Yeah.
That was kind of considered Bermuda's theater district. And it was 3 theaters, the Little Theater, Island Theater, and North Theater,
Island Theater, yeah.
right in that area. And right across the street was also a hotel, the Bermudiana Hotel.
Yes.
So when people wanted to get gussied up and
Yes.
get, that's where you went in Bermuda.
Yeah.
What happened was, black Bermudians could enter into this building, but they had colored only sections. So I'm going to say these people's names because I think it's important to know who our trailblazers were. Rudy and Vera Commission, William Francis, Gerald and Isiola Harvey, Dr. Clifford and Florence Maxwell, Marva Phillips, Dr. Stanley Rattery, Dr. Reverend Erskine Simmons, Esme and Lancelot Swan, Clifford Wade, Coleridge Williams, Rosalind Edward Williams, and Eugene Woods. They formed the progressive group. Now what they did, they met for 6 months in secret. Now they recognized that if they spoke, they would be targeted. And they also knew that if they spoke, the people within their environment would actually start talking and then spill the beans. So they made a pact amongst themselves that the message is more important than the messenger. And they said, we will not divulge the people who formed the group. These people got into a room, they came up with maps, grids. They came up with a strategy that they even came down to a strategy that said, listen, when we put up the flyers, we're not going to use glue. And the reason why they didn't use glue was because they said with the volume of glue that they will need to put up the flyers, they will know where they bought the glue. They bought flour and water, and they mixed the flour and water, and then they had somebody specifically who was designed to specifically go around and hand out the leaflets.
And just to interject one small piece, they didn't even get the flyers printed here.
No.
They actually got them printed abroad, so you couldn't trace where they were coming from. That's how strategic they were.
They then took the flyers and had them distributed under the cover of darkness, while people and they had the team split up. Where if you Somerset, you handled the Somerset, and they had people distributing them all around the island. They had, I call them heralders. there were individuals that everybody had a role. Now, here's where Bermudians we get kind of confused. There are a lot of people that played a role in this actual thing actually taking place, but they were not considered, for the technical aspect, a part of the progressive group.
Right.
And their families are really, really frustrated in the Bermuda way because they were not attached to the movement, but they played a part in the movement. I can't get involved in the politics of it, but there is unfortunately politics around whose name was considered in the progressive group, right? No, and that's another conversation in of itself for another time. But what happened was, these guys came and history record that they had over 5,000 people that showed up on a consistent basis for just under 2 weeks. Now that's deep in terms of imagine, and guess what happened? Things actually came to an outright stop.
Yeah, the
in
hotels
Bermuda.
were the first ones that started that movement, correct?
And then they had guys like a gentleman by the name of Mr. Reverend Tweed. He got up every day and he was like, this is the injustice that was going on. Another gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he goes by Jungle Bunny, and other individuals, that they were the ones responsible for talking and speaking to get the people motivated to act. This happened to the point where every day, now I have to give credit to the Recorder, which was the black newspaper of the day. It was run by a gentleman by the name of A.B. Place. It was the black community's Royal Gazette. And everything that happened, they gave it to the Recorder, and the Recorder printed it. So everybody was aware of what's going on. The Royal Gazette even got a copy, and they printed that this was going to happen. So the police came, they were smart enough to know exactly what to do. And the store owners, everybody said, listen, we are losing too much money. And what happened was, that started a chain effect with the theaters, the hotels, and then the civil service. Remember, Bermuda's government was separate, where all the administrators were not black Bermudians.
They were all white.
They were all white.
Yeah.
The first little bit of trivia, the first black permanent secretary was a lady by the name of Ruth Seton James, hence we have it named after her daughter. It's Evelyn James Barnett, works up at Bermuda College. But she was the first permanent secretary of color in Bermuda. My point is that this happened, and it changed and transformed Bermuda. Now, if you got 59 Bermudians in a room, 58 of them could not name any of those people that I called off. And you heard the names, William Simmons, they're us. And we could tell you about Martin Luther King, we could tell you about Nelson Mandela, we could tell you about Rosa Parks, but if somebody said, name one of those 18 people, you could not do it. And guess what? A part of where we did them a great disservice is they led our civil rights campaign. They were intelligent, meaning their strategy is something that legends would be made of. They came in, these guys had documents, they had drawings, they had graphs. I mean, this was no like, we're just going to do it. They were like, listen, in order for this thing to work well, strategically, we have to have our A game. And this was not something they fly by night. It was deep, and you can learn from this. The detail of their organization is something that if we were to study it and to use it, it could still, I'm watching this thing on TV now called Money Heist. And it's about, but what I took away, not promoting theft, but what I saw in the video was the plan and the detailed strategy that took place. And that's what I don't want us to lose. So the whole Freedom Square was a gentleman by the name of Glenn Fubler.
And don't worry, Cole, I see you on the line.
Glenn Fubler came to us and he said, listen, there's an opportunity for us to celebrate this. There's not enough done in Bermuda to identify what is taking place. He actually said it's actually a travesty that more has not been done to educate and celebrate.
Yes, I agree.
He came to us in the city of Hamilton, the mayor and the team said, if that is how you feel, we cannot move unless we're clear that is the voice of the people. And Mr. Fubler said, checkmate, game one. He went, he got the clergy, he got the legislature, he got the civil rights organization, Social Justice for Bermuda, CURB, CURE. He literally got all these people to write in and then come to the committee and say, we believed so much in that this would work. And we were overwhelmed with the amount of support and traction that he got from saying that if you want the community voice, I'm going to get people to come before you. And they did. They came to the committee, we set up a meeting, and they letters, affidavits, emails, petitions. And we were like, the people have spoken. We wanted to do something more than just a commemorative wall. They have this new thing called a learning city. And a learning city is where you use technology to make education come alive. And so what we done was we got 4 places within the city that people can have QR codes and they can learn in real time. And students, kids, and tourists and Bermudians alike can now come and learn about what our forefathers done for freedom for us.
Yes.
And it's called Freedom Square, and it's just the environment around City Hall.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Again, callers, if the hotline's 232-1033, and I'll take this call. Good afternoon, Vibe 103, you're live.
Afternoon, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're good. Give thanks.
We're good, thank you.
Listening to Mr. Caines speak just now, and I'm a visual person, so he just took me through a whole history lesson. And to think that everything that our forefathers fought for seems to be regressing. And now we have another group of people in the 21st century that has to seem like they've got to go through that fight all over again. I've always been the type of person that's taken part in some sort of activism one way or the other. And the young adults in my family now are taking me through it in a different way. I went on the first car rally, and they have been taking me through the emails and stuff about the vaccine and everything, and I am not vaccinated and will not get vaccinated. And my grandchildren will not be vaccinated. But we see a new group of people. I see a new group of people. You guys said, and Eugene, you know my niece. I'm not going to call her name, but she don't stand for any nonsense. And you guys are all the same age. And there's a new sort of activism that's come about now because of this division in the country. And listening to what Mr. Caines is saying in our whole history lesson, it seems like we are regressing and have to go back to this fight.
Yeah, and I would say this. I totally agree, and with that, I was very pleased to see what when the corporation unveiled Freedom Square, and even more thankful to Glenn Fobler for the impetus to ensuring that something was so important and remains so important as an integral element in our history is something that's not just recognized but also celebrated. And I like what you said about the educational component, because there's a lot that we don't, it's way too much that we don't know, and that's a whole nother conversation in itself. But steps being made to educate people is critical. Now, the thing is this, you're correct about our freedoms, and what we have to be careful about is that in our efforts to address the challenges we see, that we don't find ourselves making moves that divide us even further. This is not a situation like where it's about whether you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated, or what the things that we don't necessarily agree upon. The reality is that we find ourselves at a place where there are concerns all over the place. People are concerned. Some people are concerned more about business. Some people are concerned about their personal freedoms. Some people are concerned about the medical situation. There's a lot of concerns, and some people are concerned about half-baked mandates. Things being rolled out without being planned properly, and all these unintended consequences where people are having to suffer as a result of incompetence. People are upset about a lot of things, but what do we do? Do we then just become keyboard warriors and type in chat groups? Do we make all our noise on social media? Right? Do we come to the fore as individuals? Do we all separate and I'm trying to create something over here and somebody else is trying to create something over here? Or do we all come together as one and focus on the things that unite us? Focus on the fact that we recognize that things are put in place that are challenging things that were established years ago. And that if we don't pay close attention to what's going on in our country and around the world, we could find ourselves so far back that we'll be totally disoriented and have no idea of how to get back to a place that's balanced and comfortable, and something that is in alignment, with how we see the world and our freedoms and how we want to live and interact and engage, So we need to stand together. Let's not divide ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
Let's unite. Let's work side by side to address our collective concerns. We need to create an environment where there's objectivity, where we feel free to speak our truth, where we recognize that we're being listened to and respected. All these things are essential components of a healthy society. It will not be given to you. It's something that we need to take.
It's an old quote that says, power, it is not rendered, it is seized.
Exactly. So it's something that we're going to have to, we're going to have to get up out of our chairs. We're going to have to get up off of our couch. We're going to have to actually do something. And if we're going to do something, let's make sure that we're doing it together. Bermuda, unity is our strength. It always has been. We've been recognized all around the world for the way we recover from hurricanes, from natural disasters, right? Nobody tells us what to do. We do this automatically. It's in our blood. It's in our nature. We need to take the same principles that we use when we're recovering from natural disasters and use it to face up and stand up and address the situation that we're facing today. As a united people, we will overcome. That is the way forward.
Yes, and let's take this one. Vibe 103, you're live.
Thank you, Zara, for taking my call, and I just want to thank you and your panel so much for this conversation today. I'm so grateful for it. I'm calling to encourage Bermuda to take a step to understand the origins of what's happening today, to understand and know ourselves as sovereign beings. I believe that a lot of what we've been programmed, accustomed to, and even taught over the years has been taught to us specifically to accommodate this agenda. So I think is now at this point in which the way the world is going, it's important for us to understand and know ourselves as sovereign beings. And even being grateful for what's happening today, because it's allowing us to create better for ourselves and this world. A lot of destruction is going on in this world, and Mother, as a result of the leading, I'll put it that way, the leading, the people who are leading the world. We are following suit with a greater hierarchy. So I want us to be grateful for the chance to be able to create. I know it feels uncomfortable, the changes that are happening. Once we open our hearts and minds to allow positive change, we can now be a part of this beautiful creation that will happen naturally as a result of our positive vibrations as a whole. And I also would like to encourage people to get more involved in support groups that will help increase our understanding and awareness of where we are as humans. We have the CUR, which is the Citizens Uprooting Racism in Bermuda. We have the Just Stop campaign, which is actually something that has been reestablished now, that's opening up in Bermuda. And also the Bermuda Freedom Alliance. Let's get involved so that we can unite and work together for the greater good of our community, ourselves, and Bermuda as a whole, even the world. That's changing.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Okay, so it's past 12, but Enda, if you want to go ahead and give some closing remarks, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so first of all, let me again say thank you for having me on the show.
Thank
I
you
had
for
a great
being
time.
here. Thank you for being
It's
here.
been wonderful, and
She's cutting her eyes at Eugene.
I'm learning Eugene is starting to get me into wonderful things, broadening my horizon.
There you go, stepping out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
like the highway drive.
Yeah,
There you
like
go.
the highway drive. But anyway, I love Eugene dearly. So what I want to say to Bermuda as a whole, sometimes when I contemplate, my thoughts run to how many of us realize that we are enslaved. How many of us are even interested because we become comfortable, even though we know, but I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I don't want to rock my boat. It's not as bad as it was when my mama was growing up. So we accept a lot of things. We take it on the chin. We take one for the team. We say, well, let me think about my children. I can't make moves like this. And we come up with what I call excuses. I'm not trying to be offensive. I definitely don't want to offend anybody, but we seem to get better at making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Why we can't move, why we won't move. And we accommodate our fears. And that's where we run into a lot of problems. We accommodate something that doesn't benefit us. And then we get into a space where after a while we don't know what to do because we really are not comfortable. We're not comfortable. We look around our homes and we say, so is this it? I worked hard to get my house and now I have it. I've been here for 5 years and is this it?
Mm-hmm.
People have gotten married because they thought it was going to be a thing. And a year later they're looking at the spouse saying, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
Now what? What happens next? So we don't understand that we keep looking for that thing to make us what? Better? Different? Whole? What is it that you're looking for? And a lot of times we cannot answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We are enslaved. Some of us recognize we're enslaved. What did Harriet Tubman say? I freed 300 and I could have freed 300 more only if they knew they were slaves. For me, it's so incredibly important that we begin to self-realize, self-identify. We have to come to a space of self-knowledge. Who we are, where we are, what do we want? How are we going to get it? How do I connect with a deeper part of myself? Where is this kingdom of God that is within, that we hear about, that we're told about across religious belief systems? And so I would encourage Bermuda, really, really encourage Bermuda to take the time. If you are home, if you're not working, take that time. Start thinking about who you are. What do you want out of life? What is life to you? What are you contributing to life? If your complaints are overriding, how do you stop complaining and get in a space that you are happy with? If you have to push out and push against something because you recognize your freedoms are being encroached upon, or you don't have them at all, do you even realize how many laws are made every Friday? How many laws are argued for?
Yeah.
Do we even realize what is being taken from us? Do we care? I mean, I'm busy. I put them in place so they can do it. But then you wake up one morning and you don't even know something's against the law.
Mm-hmm.
Because yesterday it wasn't. So being more aware, internally, externally, and then becoming very strategic. What is your own life plan? What is your own, we make business plans, we make goals, I want to accomplish it. What is your internal plan? What is your character building plan? What is your self-discipline regimen? Do you have one? What structures are in place in your own life? Because you are being contained by something that a government is telling you is better for you. But who makes that choice? And why aren't you adding your voice to this cry so people can know how you feel? Why aren't you doing it? Why don't you carry on? Please stop telling me you're afraid. Mm-hmm. Stop doing that. Because if your child comes to you and says, Mama, somebody hit me on the playground, and you ask, well, did you tell the teacher? And well, I did, but the teacher didn't really say, you know what, I used to tell my son, hit him back.
Mhm.
Okay, so mama, now we're all going to get in trouble. Okay, so then I'm coming down to school. Because if your child constantly says, I'm unhappy about this, or this is hurting me, you start staying awake at night. Because you start trying to figure out, how am I going to fix this problem? So that my child's not treated worse, and so that my child is comfortable in the environment that I keep sending them to every day. But you can't do it for yourself. We have to get to this understanding. I am valuable. I am important. I mean something. If to nobody else, to me. So I must stand up for me. And not tomorrow. Now.
Mhm.
Not next week. Right now.
And people are at a point in their lives when you hear people say, "What's the point in living anymore?"
Yeah.
That's bad.
Exactly.
That's very
When do you
bad.
say, have I had enough? Have I had enough? And if your answer is no, well, you got a lot more to go through. But if you can say, yes, I have had enough, and get to thinking, get to moving, get to processing, get to acting, speak up, do something. Let me tell you something. When something bothers me enough, if I don't move away from it, I stand right in front of it. And I say, you are bothering me.
Mhm.
You. Whether that's in the mirror or whether that's to a person. But you're bothering me. And we need to come to some way that this stops.
Conversation.
Okay?
Mhm.
And then if we can't do it, verbally, we might have to see, well, who's the strongest, because I'm going to start putting my hands on you. Well, it's what happens, right? Because I keep trying to tell you, your foot's in my neck, and it hurts, and I can't function. And so in order to get your foot out of my neck, I'm going to have to do something. Because you're taking pride, and you're getting some sort of ego boost or thrill that you have this power over me. And what's worse is, I gave it to you. I gave you this power. I trusted you. And now this is where we're at?
Yeah.
And then I try to talk to you. I'm not worthy of your listening ear. I'm not worthy of that. But when it's time for me to vote for you, I all of a sudden become worthy.
Well, it's funny because, and I try to stay apolitical, but the last election, it was interesting because I lost my train of thought because you just what was the thing what did you just say, Enda?
I was saying that when you want my vote,
Right.
I become worthy.
So I said, I thought to myself, we've all felt locked up for the past when the pandemic started. I can't remember because the pandemic. Yes, it was through the election, wasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah.
So I thought to
March and
myself,
October.
I thought to myself, I said, for the first time, I actually feel like I'm the one that has a voice now in the power,
Yes.
and they're the ones that are bowing
Yes.
down and going to you today.
Right.
So I said, how does that feel? You see how you all feel today on the other side? That's how we've all been feeling for however long it was. Because I did 2 years, it seems like it's been a lifetime. But how does that feel? Because in those 12 hours or 24 hours when the election was going on, they were in the place that we're all at right now and we're in. But for that one day, they felt like how we did. Trapped. Scared, worrying, the unpredictable future, and for once we had the batons in our hands. And it was just like, how do you feel? Because guess what? That's how we've been feeling. Doesn't feel nice, does it?
Yeah, so my
That's why we gotta keep moving forward and be united.
And capture that feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling where you felt empowered that day because they had to come and ask you for
Yeah.
your vote. Will you support me? Connect with that feeling. In that feeling where you knew that your vote makes a difference to them, that, okay, so what are you offering? You're coming to my house, you're knocking on my door. What are you telling me as we're going through this nonsense or this pandemic? So you felt that, okay, now you have to convince me. There, as you're saying, there was a certain power you felt or empowerment that you connect to it. connect to it and carry it every day because you still actually have that power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's take this call, Enda.
Okay.
513, you're live.
Good afternoon. I'm enjoying this so much because it's helping me to release my anger a bit. And when I hear of that young lady that was on earlier concerning Bill Gates at that hotel, that is disgusting. They all should have dropped tools. That's how I feel about the situation. But we definitely all need to get together. Don't just talk. We need action. You know what I'm saying? We need action. There's too much of us talking and talking and talking and getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. This discrimination has to stop. This party needs to stop. I'm just sick and tired. You know, you wake up mornings, your body is full of nerves, you know, the same every day. I've never felt like this before. And now it's like, gosh, what's tomorrow's going to be? What tomorrow's going to be? But thank God I know Jesus. Because he wakes me up every morning and he tells me to hold on, sister. A better day is coming. And whoever Bill Gates is, I don't know him. I don't even want to hear his name. He needs to get off this island. The health department, the ministers, they need a wake-up call. They need to go to church and ask for forgiveness for the things that they're doing and saying and to us. I just can't take this anymore. You know, they're not going to send me Maui or wherever it is. Because if anything, I'm going to end up casemates. Because I am not going to allow these people to come into my country and these people whom I vote for to treat me in this manner. I'm sick of it. And I'm the one that last week I came on and I shouted because I was angered. I had so much to say, I couldn't get it out. That's why I cut it short. I'm tired. I'm tired. Every day is something. Child at the airport can't come in. You know, all these little things. Now I heard this lady, they all have to get vaccinated because Bill Gates was there. Who on earth? They're not Jesus. Who on earth do they think they are? I am not going to let this island control me. I hear every day is something. Every day. And I'm sick of it. We need to all come together. Just the way we came together when we all got sprayed. But we need to see that this afternoon at City Hall, wherever this situation is going to be. We all need to stand up.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. I understand.
Yeah.
And yes, come on at 3 o'clock. Let's take this other call. 513, you're live.
I just want to say thank you to you and to for giving us this forum to have this conversation. And I'm sure my 7 years is the last quarter. I have literally woke up, Mom, and feeling extremely exhausted, depressed and stressed, and but encouraged that I know that it's people like you that are out there talking and sharing and expressing your concern to the community. And I know that there are many others who are choosing not to. But this, what the government is really trying to do to us is absolutely awful. And I know for a fact that if another party was in, we would all be up on the heels, including the leaders of the current government, ensuring that this was not being allowed where people have to go and stay in a hotel to quarantine. I am more frustrated because I have experienced quarantine with my daughter coming in on 3 occasions since the pandemic has started. And she has quarantined once because it was mandatory, everybody coming in, and twice at home she was quarantined in her own space, and we made provisions for her. And we are law-abiding citizens. And it's just absolutely frustrating to me that I've always been one to advocate and speak up for what's wrong, but now I feel like I have to be the face of it because it's just within me and I cannot hold it back. And like I said, I should have started in such a calling, and I just want to thank you all for being able to have a voice and just somewhere where we can say something, because I just feel like we're just being shut out and shut down.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for your kind words and your support. And I'll take this last call. Vibe 103, you're live.
Yeah, go money. I want to thank you guys for this forum. You're doing pretty good. Let's just start at, if we don't know where we come from, we cannot know where we're going. So if we do not know our history, where history has a tendency to repeat itself, I feel that is where we're going on now. But the question that I have, and I asked my friends the same question, if it was the other party in government today, what would we still sitting up and having a conversation at the kitchen table, or what would we putting our feet in the front yard? That's the question. Because is it because, I don't know, because your own whip you is a whip is a whip, it still hurts the same, no matter who's running. But, you know, I feel that the educational aspect of it, where we haven't taught or have been taught, once where we have come from, it is hard to know where we're going. Because like the two ladies before me, I bless them, you know, it's a battle that we are going to have to fight all over again, and that is totally unnecessary. But, you know, like I heard the phrase, keyboard warrior. If that's where we're at, that's not going to do it. You guys have a good day. Bless you all.
Thank you so much, caller, and I'll take this last call. Vibe 103, you're live.
Yes, I just want to point out that we need to look at the hand sanitizers a little deeper. I do appreciate you guys' show and forum because you allow others to listen in and hear just exactly what they need to hear to see the better things, or sometimes even get it worse. But positively speaking, I think the hand sanitizers, they were used for just to clean, I guess, the bacteria on your hands. And now with the frequent use of it, it's causing all sorts of other issues. So we need to really start looking at how we can go with a more humane or greener solution. I just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Eugene or Enda, did you want to just close out?
So I just want to say thank you, Bermuda, for listening, and I hope you're feeling encouraged and fired up.
Yes.
And I am looking forward to seeing more energy, more uprising, more pushback, cross some lines, and yes, I'm saying it, I'm encouraging you to cross some lines, because if not, we are not going to see the change that we are deserving of. So I want to say thank you so much again, and have a fabulous afternoon. And as you know, I always say it, I mean it from my heart. I love you. I think about you. I contemplate you. And we're going to do some amazing things. I love you.
Eugene?
Well, give thanks, Enda, for bringing such wonderful energy into the studio today.
Yeah.
We definitely took a deep dive today. It's been very introspective and internal. And this situation is causing us to ask some very difficult questions. You know, do we realize our power, the power that exists within us? Have we found ways to tap into that, to really understand it? How do we value ourselves? What do we value in life? This question about materials versus, right, the value that we put on ourselves. What is the real priority? Is the priority things like our houses and our cars and our mortgages and our trips and our lifestyles? Or is it like our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our souls? Are we delving deep into our thought processes to really come to terms with who we are and where we stand in life? And if we're not, then how do we really do that? how do we undo all of the misinformation, all of the misguidance, all of the habits that we've developed that aren't serving us? How do we introduce habits that are more enriching, empowering, more fulfilling to ourselves? Where do we go for these teachings? Where do we go for this understanding? How do we cope in the midst of such overt pressure, coercion, and force? How do we stand, in our truth when we're challenged to find company? Do we just accept things because so-called everyone else in the world is doing it? Or do we rise? And in that, how do we rise? We say things like unity is strength. But what do we do? And if we realize that we've developed a lot of habits that aren't serving us, then how do we make the adjustment? Well, we can start by looking within. We can start by taking steps to spend more time with ourselves. You're not alone. You're with yourself. And a lot of times the way we frame things is critical, because that really helps define how we really look at it. Perspective means a lot in these situations. What I will say in support of what Enda says is that, I love you. I love everyone in Bermuda. I mean, all around the world, we're all connected. All living things are connected. And what happens to each of us has an impact on us all. And so it's very important that we start to rally together. Yes, we must cross lines, as Enda said. Civil disobedience has been necessary in our fight for freedoms in the past, and is a necessary tool that must be used today. If we prioritize ourselves, we will find the power that we need to stand in our truth and to stand for our freedoms. And we can do that together. We have to realize that we ultimately are responsible for upholding the mandates that are being put in place. I said this before, and I'll close with this. The mask has become a symbol of our compliance. Let your smile be a symbol of our freedom. Give thanks.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you so much. Again, thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to all the guests today. Shout out to Dwayne. Thank you for being here today. This show is every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. You could reach me on all of Facebook, Instagram, The Outlet BDA. Remember to go to beyondthepandemic.tv. And I hope to see everybody on the Cabinet Grounds at 3 o'clock today. Very peaceful moment I think we're going to have down there. And I hope to see a good turnout. And remember me to stand up.
All of the views or comments expressed by participants are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect the opinions or position of Vibe 103.
Think you missed your calling.
That was good.
I think you missed your calling now. That was good. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was so fucked up with. No, you didn't. No, that's like different side of like.
This is my soul. I know. Don't just song those for you. Oh,
I know. Izzy sings it now. My little 2-year-old. Yeah, she's like, stand up. Yeah, little 2-year-old. It's so cute. Wow. Because I played in the back of my head. I played. This was the best song. So good. Because you guys touched on everything. People's feelings and emotions. I don't remember who. I do what I can when I can. Oh my God, please. Which is huge right now.
While the clouds roll back and the stars feel the night.
I'm gonna take a picture.
That's when the